Hey, how's it going?
Pretty good. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Thanks for asking. It's a beautiful day outside.
A little chilly where I'm at. How about you?
Oh, about the same. Yeah. Everything good with your family?
Yeah, family's healthy, doing well.
Oh,
Kids are
good,
growing. Yeah.
good. Good New Year?
How about you?
Yeah. Things are good. Can't complain. Can't complain.
Yeah.
Living the dream. Another day, another dollar. Yep. Yep.
Okay.
Going well.
I I think one thing we could do, and we talked about this a little bit, is when we had the radio show, there's a part of radio intros, and I don't really know if a lot of podcasts have this because it's just different. It's just much more organic, right? You start it however you started, even if you have a unique way, which we did. What if we pre-recorded something a little bit different, but also similar? The Hey Behaves, Middlecoff, high school friends, boys for years. But put our own new spin on it and press play. So every day that is fresh with like 30 seconds, and then I don't have to manipulate energy when I'm not really feeling it. Because sometimes I'm feeling it, sometimes I'm not. But if it's just there, and technically, the listener would hear it, get them fired up, and it's kind of like the cue to go.
Yeah, I like it. And if it's imaging, if it's the pre-edited, then you can kind of get it exactly the way you want it. Where it's not, you can kind of dial back the right cheesiness level, right?
Yeah,
Sometimes it's hard.
and then even if it's cheesy, it doesn't matter. That's just part of the deal. I think it's hard if you're not feeling cheesy on a given day. Uh, you just not having it. I feel like I have pretty good high tea. I got high
Kenneth
tea.
said, for those of you listening to this, oh, so this is about John's low T.
No, it's more. I think as my I know me like inside. I think you're like this too. Is some days you're higher than others. Just with your mentality and your excitement. Some days
every day's a battle, John.
Yeah, it's not like depression, but you got your highs and your lows. And, sometimes you're more into it. But when you have that, you don't ever have to fake it. You just press go, and then the show goes. And then, we're professionals. You've got to be on when the lights come on. But the intro can be its own thing. I've been thinking about that for the last 24 hours.
I think that is probably the place that we end up. Yep. I think that's a good place to be. I like that idea. Now we got to, we make a video for it so it matches, the audio for the podcast matches, but I think it's a good place to be.
Yeah.
But I also like maybe going another couple of weeks of just trying out some different things just for fun.
Yeah.
I've always been a big fan of
what are you doing?
Yeah, well, I think historically, I remember one time in radio, I had the idea that what if you never introduced anything when you came back from a commercial break? In radio, there's these things called long commercial breaks. And my idea briefly was when you come back from break, you shouldn't have any music. You shouldn't have anything that introduce. Maybe you have a quick, like, you're listening to Haberman and Middlecoff on 870 The Game, the hottest radio in Ontario, right? So you have that. And then you just dive back in. Mid-sentence was my idea. You restart a segment mid-sentence every time. And I quickly got rid of that idea because it doesn't make any sense. But
you're kind of onto something.
Yeah, there's something to be said for just diving into a show, very much unlike what we're doing here today, but doing it to make a point. So we're hearing your feedback. We appreciate those of you that have given us feedback. Dave says, I still think of Sledgehammer during the opening every time. For those of you more kind of OG listeners, if you're new, you won't know this, but the show used to start with Peter Gabriel's song, Sledgehammer.
Good tune.
Good tune. Yep. It was a great tune. I thought it was a great start to the show, but, we didn't have the rights to it. And as the show grew, we realized we should probably kind of button down the operation. Zeus says you guys should get some merch. So, we've had some. We did some. We had hats.
Yeah.
We had hats last year. Last year.
I think over the last 18 months, you might have ordered it and might have carried over.
I thought it was like.
I thought it was maybe 2020, but maybe early 2021.
Draft kind of. I think they started going out around the draft. I thought.
Maybe you're right. It all kind of runs together. A little hard with the supply chain, but we've had.
I would love to do some more merch.
Yeah, for sure. I would love to do pullovers.
Pullovers?
Yeah.
Yep. Pullovers is a good idea. Hats are great. Hats are, I think, probably I'm no merch expert. Maybe a merch expert out there could help us. Hats, from my kind of merch digging, is probably the hardest thing to do. And I think it's because it's hard. I mean, to do well, I think.
Yeah.
Because hats require either direct stitch or a patch that gets made separately and then attached to the hat. And there's just an extra step there. Whereas, this kind of stuff you can.
I don't think we give the haberdashers. Aren't those the people? I think that was Joe Banner's.
Haberdashery. Yeah, haberdasher. He was a haberdasher. Haberdasher.
He was a haberdasher before he became the president of an NFL team. And yeah, it's I have a lot of respect for making any sort of, it's all very difficult.
Joe Banner makes a brief appearance in Draft Day, a movie I watched the other night with commercials. That was quite a grind, John, I got to say.
Well, part of it is just hanging out with Costner. I rented the other night Tin Cup just because I wanted
much better movie, though.
Much better movie. But part of it is just like I'm just get to hang out with Kevin, And,
yeah.
Yeah, it's just the Tin Cup still held up pretty well.
There's something to be said for that. I was watching Draft Day going, I'm not great at identifying bad acting, or mediocre acting. I can tell bad acting when it's bad acting, and I think I can tell what good acting is. But mediocre acting, I'm not great at identifying. Like some people are like, oh, I watched that movie. I thought so-and-so was good, but so-and-so was average. And so-and-so, I'm like, I can't ever tell. And I made a point to watch that movie and try and figure, is this all? Because it's like a lot of good people. Dennis Leary is the head coach, and Jennifer Gardner is gorgeous, and Costner is Costner, and
Khalil Mack.
Khalil Mack is played by what's his name?
He's jacked.
Is it the guy that the great actor that passed away, who was Black Panther? Isn't that the guy that plays Khalil Mack?
Is that the guy? Not the naked other dude with the penis? That was just a porn actor. Remember the meme that was going around with the big penis?
Oh no, not that guy. The guy that died. Yeah, no, he passed away. Is it Chadwick Boseman? Is that the?
Yeah, I think maybe you're right. Actually, what was the quarterback's name? Malik Mack? Was that his name? Malik
no, it was
Mack?
like Dean. It was like Dean Ryan or something like that.
No, the wasn't the pass rusher Mack? Wasn't that his last name?
Yeah. That was Chadwick Boseman. But the quarterback, didn't you ask about the quarterback? Well, some other guy. I can't remember.
There were two. One of the quarterbacks was the guy that no one went to.
Bo
his birthday
Scarborough
party.
or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. What was that guy's name? I forget that guy's name. You're right. The top draft pick. Yeah. This podcast is brought to you in part by MyBookie.ag. Promo code HAM and the number one. MyBookie.ag. Promo code HAM and the number one. Will match your deposit dollar for dollar up to $1,000. Bo Callahan, Vontae Mack.
Yeah, those are good. Those are good movie football names, are they not? Like that, those are legit. They got those right. That might be the highlight of the movie. Those two names.
The names were good. The worst actor in the movie is like the top scout for the Browns. Now that I'm thinking about it, he was terrible.
Guys, we're
on the clock here.
I also think. And let's be real. You'd have to be naive to think that office sex doesn't happen. GM having sex, not his girlfriend, but just casual sex with the capologist feels a little risky. I don't know if you're the owner. If I owned a team,
right?
Or you and I were like in the building
owner was
and played
great
a role,
in the movie too. The owner was great.
I don't know if I'd love that, but. MyBookie.ag, promo code HAM1. We already have $500 on Alabama. They're an underdog. The value's too good to pass up. I told you right before we hopped on, one number that stood out to me, because this week's hard. The last several weeks have been hard, right? I mean, it's easy after the fact to know, I wish I would have taken the Ravens with Tyler Huntley. I wish I would have taken the Raiders to win outright. That's not how gambling works. Miami playing New England. Now, the game's in Miami. But you watch, Miami just got worked by the Titans. Their offense guy is terrible. Well, the Patriots defense is really good. Did they just pick off, Trevor Lawrence 3 times? So they beat him 50-10. But their defense is, they got DBs, they got pass rushers, they got Belichick. I just like the matchup. Tua versus Bill, who's he still can win the division, though it's out of his control. But it's important for them just keep playing well, go into the playoffs. They will definitely, if they win this game big, be a sexy first-round pick, right? Whoever they play, whether it's the Bengals or I guess they probably wouldn't play the Chiefs, but the Bengals or the Bills. I think a decent amount of people will be betting on Bill Belichick as an underdog.
Yeah, we might be, right?
Yeah. I would say the Bills, like -3 would make me a little nervous. I'd say this, if we get, Bills +3, If you got Belichick like plus 5.5, plus 6 going to Cincinnati, you could convince me you want to double down and put $1,000 on Belichick. Now we're running low on funds if we don't win a game here soon. So
I know. What are we at right now?
Like $1,400. Now we have 500 outstanding. So, but we're leaking oil.
We were up near 4,000 not too long ago.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. This is not a good time to tell you I don't feel as great about Alabama as I did the other day, but no, I'm all in. The Dolphins have won 2 in a row against the Patriots and 3 out of 4. Now, not all of that was Tua. There were some Fitzpatrick versus Cam Newton games mixed in there. I actually like New England a little bit more because they lost the first meeting to Miami, right? I think that was the season opener in Foxborough. So that would have been Mac Jones's first game. Does that sound right?
Yeah,
No.
it was. No,
Yeah.
it was
Okay.
I mean, he started the whole season.
Well, I know, but was it the opener or was it week 2 they played?
I thought it was week 1 they beat him, and it was a close game. But
it was a close game. Mac Jones was, I'm just looking at the box score here now, 29 of 39 for 281. I can't imagine Mac Jones throws the ball 39 times against Miami.
No.
In this meeting. So I like that, John.
You want to put that in stone right now?
Do you think it's going to move? I mean, it's hard. This week's hard just because there's not a ton of games. It's kind of like a college bowl season, week 18 of the NFL.
One thing I do like about this is it's minus 105. So sometimes when we bet $500, we only win like 428 or 432 if it's minus 115. I do like the -7, minus 105. So we bet 500, we win $477.
What about, I do like that. What about Jags money line plus 725?
Shock the world.
Colts haven't won in Jacksonville since 2014.
That's pretty nuts. I wonder if they've played a couple Euro games. Had to have, right? No way they've lost 7 straight. 7 straight.
No, I looked at
games.
the log earlier, and I think they've lost games where they were the road team.
Well, they definitely lost last year, right? Week 1.
It almost kept them out of the playoffs. Let's see. This is Jags at Jacksonville, win. At Jacksonville in 18, win. At Jacksonville in 17, win. And they also beat them in Indy that year. At Jacksonville in 16, Jacksonville win. At Jacksonville in 15, win. At Jacksonville in 14, loss.
I do think the streak ends.
I think one thing, watching the Colts a lot, once again, every time I watch the Colts, Wentz does at least one, if not two, of a two-handed overhead inbounds pass.
Well, it's a lot of times when he's getting taken down by 3 guys.
And a left-handed pass. He does at least one, if not the two-handed pass. I've seen a lot.
He's big on making throws when he's headed to the ground.
I would love to see him in the postseason, but alas, John, we're only going to get 2 of this group: Herbert, Carr, Wentz. Only 2 of those 3 are going to make the playoffs this year.
Because Mac's in, baby.
Because Mac is in. And I would love I would love all 3. Like, I would love Carr in the playoffs. He hasn't had it. I would love Herbert in the postseason. I would love Wentz in the postseason. But we can't get all 3 of those.
Expand it to 8.
So. Expand the playoffs? Why not?
Yeah.
I mean, I say go to 9, so you still get that first-round bye. Or go to 8, and then you get 2 first-round buys.
I agree.
I wouldn't mind the 2 seed getting a bye again. Feels right. Like, 2 seed's a pretty damn good team.
I actually think why they gave the Chiefs the Saturday night game, Saturday day game, like throw them a little bit of a bone.
Oh.
It's like a sneaky extra day off for them. You still put them on Sunday. I would imagine Chiefs, Chargers, or whatever could easily be Sunday afternoon CBS, right? Or Sunday. I guess that game is typically Romo, Nance. For us, 10 a.m. kickoff, the CBS game. Last year, I think it was Ravens-Titans. So, because then Fox, Aikman, and Buck usually do Fox afternoon on that opening weekend. And then I think NBC now sometimes does a couple games. Now ESPN's playing a role. They got a playoff game. It'll be interesting to see. I mean, it's so crazy because the matchups, beside the Packers, we have no clue what the matchups are going to be. Right? I bet the network executives are just putting together like a puzzle right now. Like who wants what's going to go where, what's going to be the Monday night game.
The Monday night game is fascinating.
Well, to me, Niners, Cowboys, I mean, would they put that thing on Monday Night Football?
Well, why wouldn't? I mean, Sunday night historically gets the better games. Why wouldn't Sunday night get that game?
But hasn't Sunday night really been moved more to Saturday night now? I don't know. I guess we've only seen this one year, the 7 teams.
So you're saying
There aren't going to be a Saturday
and
and a Sunday night game because one of those games is getting moved to. There might not be a set. Is there going to be a Saturday night game? You're not having 3.
Well, is it still
right?
just? Did ESPN always have just one game, Wild Card Weekend, and it was on Saturday?
Yeah, but there were only 4. There were 4 games, so every network got a game.
But does ESPN have 2 games this now?
I think they would probably only. Yeah, it's a great question. I would guess NBC has 2, but who knows? I haven't honestly looked into the setup because the Monday night now has thrown a wrench in the whole thing. Because last year it was 3 games, right? 10 a.m., 1 o'clock night game, 10 a.m., 1 o'clock night game.
Yeah.
ESPN has Monday night this year.
Well, so ESPN definitely has the Monday night, but I'm saying, do they also have? So here we go. Okay, this does not help me. This tells me that they're all on Fubo TV. Fantastic.
Yeah, who cares? We'll figure it out later.
So we've got is AFC, NFC Wild Card Saturday, AFC, NFC Wild Card Saturday. So we got 2 Saturdays. We got 3 Sundays, and then a Monday. Does that sound right? Yeah.
So I would imagine they put a night game on Saturday, not a morning game on Saturday, right? There's no 10
there's a 1:35 and an 8:15 on Saturday. Yeah.
Cool. Is there a night game on Sunday? Yeah.
Yes.
They like that night window.
I guess the question is there a matchup more attractive to everybody than Cowboys Niners?
I would say Bills Patriots would have people lined up to get with New England, and whatever Tom Brady's game is will be pretty highly valued too.
So you think? Yeah, I mean, which
I think the Cowboys, the Patriots, Brady, and the Niners brand. I mean, it's just a fact. I mean, they're fucking.
What would be my number 1 pick? I think would be Cowboys Niners.
A sleeper would be Bucs Saints because they have played some really good games.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, the Saints defense
and Tom is just a league cash cow. I don't think you can go wrong.
So are you saying Tom. Buffalo, New England potentially would be your 3rd pick?
I just think Buffalo, New England. I think most people that don't live in that Northeast would underrate that value to you could put that thing any night game and everyone is fucking doing cartwheels, right? I mean, it was the best Monday night game of the year to me by far was Belichick versus the Bills and Buffalo. That's a big property, I think, now. And Josh Allen's now a star. But to me, Bill, this is where Bill is basically Tom's equivalent as a coach.
Yeah.
Because he just walks in with the brand of the Patriots. He's bigger than the Niners. He's bigger. You could say he's maybe not quite as big as the Cowboys, but he's right behind it. I mean, now you could argue it's the fucking playoffs. You just put games and it works. But how
about Bucs Niners? Would that be a number 1 pick?
Yeah, but Fox is going to want their hands on one of these, right?
Yeah.
I would imagine Fox would fucking jump in front of bullets for Cowboys Niners on Sunday afternoon, right?
Yes.
So I don't know. ESPN might be last. ESPN Monday night. You could argue the Monday night game, it doesn't really matter. Last night was terrible, yet it was good because it was Monday Night Football, right? The Monday night game is.
It was good for me. It was good because it was at least close enough that you could keep watching in case something happens. What do you see?
I just saw this comment right here that got me thinking. Would be great historically speaking to see, but the rivalry has not been one since '94. It's not about the rivalry. It's about the brand power. And the brand power equals eyeballs. This is all a quantitative game that these people are playing.
I agree. I think some of it is the rivalry. But I'm with you. The reason I said Cowboys Niners is because Cowboys is a number 1 TV pick and Niners are a huge TV pick. I do think if Niners Cowboys play, I can only imagine how many John Madden videos they would air coming out of commercial breaks, right?
Yeah.
But in any event, that'll be a fun. We should do a TV draft once all the games are set.
It's not a bad idea on Tuesday.
Yeah.
Next week.
Yeah. Be the TV executives that we are. We got takes. All right, we'll start with this today. Trey Lance or Jimmy Garoppolo. What are the factors here that Kyle Shanahan is considering? Kyle was asked about that Monday in his press conference and said, if Jimmy was 100% and could play unhindered, Jimmy Garoppolo would be the pick. This is not a direct quote. He said, though, I'm not going to, we play with Jimmy all year. I'm not going to replace him after everything. He didn't say everything he's done for us, but he's been the guy all year. I'm not going to replace him if he is 100%. Then was asked, but then he said, no one's 100%. So, we all know that is not a realistic scenario. Saying if Jimmy was 100%, he'd play is like saying if we win the Super Bowl, Jimmy will be our quarterback, right? That was not me saying "our" in my voice, but in Jed's voice. So, do you think Jimmy Garoppolo is going to be the quarterback again this week against the Rams?
I do not, because I don't think he can grip a football. And I think football, probably most of all the sports, guys consistently play through injuries. But to me, there's a big difference of playing through a sore shoulder at any position, right? A broken rib. We've seen basically every injury under the sun guys have played through. Hamstrings, broken bones. If you can't grip the football and you are a quarterback, you can't play football. His position is predicated on him holding the football on every snap. As every quarterback would say, part of the reason, so much pressure on us, we touch the ball every snap. It's like a pitcher and a catcher, right? There are just things like if you can't grip a bat as a hitter, you can't play. You can't take an AB. There are just certain things that you're like, it's just pretty basic human anatomy. Now, I think there's a bigger picture, like where I sit, and now I'm attending the game, so I want to see Trey Lance live, but this is a pretty invaluable experience to get this opportunity that it's even a question. I understand, as someone who's pounded the table for Trey, watching the game back, he has a long way to go. He is a very raw product. And, you've beat this team with Garoppolo, hell, with CJ and Nick Mullins. This would be a tough scenario because a little closer to Arizona than the team they just played a couple days ago. Noticed last week, Von Miller's kind of flying around a little bit better now. Aaron's looks pretty, they have a legitimate pass rush. They have guys that can at any moment get multiple sacks in a game. And that's a lot to ask the guy, the pressure. Though I think it's easier to start him. This is a non-one-off situation, right? He can build on last week. He got to do the Monday film study with the guys, put the game to bed, as the quarterbacks always say, move on. It is an easier transition that he has. I know it's Division I AA, but he's been a starter before. But it is, I would go with Trey. Partly just, I think they don't have a choice. But I'll be the first to acknowledge, I would temper our expectations in this situation for the young guy. This is not an easy scenario. Because, number one, first and foremost, whether it was Jimmy or Trey, has there ever been an easier situation? Maybe Kirby. Because Kirby can get in front of his team this week and go, these fucking guys have beat us 5 straight times. We've never beat them. Sean McVay can get in front of his guys. Cooper Kupp, Aaron Donald, even Vaughn, you're new. These guys have been kicking the shit out of us now since back when Corona was a beer. So, hey guys, we need to beat these guys. And not only do we need to beat these guys, it's a double whammy. We're playing to win the division. And if they win the division, and you and I did a little math, they will be the number 1 seed. If they win, the number 2 seed, which means they get multiple home games. So they win this game. They have a lot on the line. They win the division, which is always a big deal in the NFL. You take a lot of pride in it. It's not quite, I would say, baseball, but it is. You watch these coaches after they win the division. It's a big fucking deal. You win the division and you go, well, we got to play Green Bay, but at least we get 2 home games. Someone has to beat us in the first round, and someone has to beat us in the second round at home. We don't have to travel. I would say the Rams, the opponent, the motivation's easy, regardless who the quarterback is, but most important, what they have ahead of them, right? They're we get to control our destiny till Lambeau, the NFC Championship.
Yeah. I think they've got a lot to play for. And the other thing they've got is, I think if I'm Sean McVay, specifically talking to Matthew Stafford, I'm going, Matthew, we got to get this thing right before the playoffs start. We've gotten away with it for the last 3 weeks, throwing picks. But we got to get this thing figured out, kind of get on track here before the playoffs start.
Fumbles too. He's fumbles.
Fumbles too. Now they're home, but this is the kind of team if I'm him, I'm saying to him hey, against this secondary, you got to get right against this group, right? So that would be the other priority, I think. Like Stafford's got something to play for as well. Now, that said, they've beat him 5 in a row. They've beat him 5 in a row through a variety of different personnel groups and quarterbacks. And, they've beat him 5 in a row. Like, that's not nothing. But I think as it relates to Trey or Jimmy, there were things that happened in the game last week. You and I have both watched the game again, the Texans-Niner game. And you see why in some plays Kyle would want to go with Garoppolo and why he drafted Trey Lance combined in the same play, right? Like when Trey Lance rolls out, and you and I talked about this on Sunday, but when there was one play where he rolls out, he's got Kittle in the flat, doesn't throw it to him, hesitates, then ends up like back foot, defender in his face, throwing around the guy, downfield to Trent Sherfield at the sideline, bam. It was my favorite throw of the day against the Texans. That's everything in one play. It's why didn't he throw it where he was supposed to throw it? Oh, my God, look at that throw he made. Same thing on their own goal line, right? Drop back, double slants on the left, doesn't throw it to Kittle. I think it might have been Ayuk, maybe Debo on the other side, whoever it was. Instead, scrambles, ends up scrambling on his own goal line. Oh, my God, what is he doing? Boom, hits Ayuk coming across the field for a first down. So in one play, we're seeing what he brings that Jimmy doesn't bring and why he might scare you a little bit as a coach. And I think right now, given the circumstances, Kyle's fallback would probably be just give me the guy that'll do what I tell him to do, and then we can deal with developing a quarterback later. But I don't think he's going to have that choice this week.
I don't know if it might have been my favorite throw just because Jimmy doesn't have the capability of doing this. Toward the end of the first half, they took a shot to Ayuk on a go route. And when he let it rip, and it probably flew 35, 40 yards in the air, I'm like, I don't even think he stepped into that. Is he gonna throw a pick? And the ball just kept climbing. It was fucking easy. And it hit Ayuk. Now, it would have been an impossible catch. Even Archuleta was like, that would have been an insane catch. It wasn't really a catchable ball given like kind of how close he was covered.
Yeah.
But the only person that could touch it was Ayuk. And the ease in which he threw the go route, let's face it, the Niners do not run go routes. In a league that is full of go routes, like every team has them.
I see him every time the Niners play.
The Raiders run them just to get
from
pass
the other
interferences. That pass is like, you can open up the offense. Because guess what happens when you can push go routes? You can run the ball easier because they have to put the safeties back there. There was a play last night when Ben, it was like, RPO or something, and he got rid of the ball, and then he went like this. And Peyton Manning was like, I think he's mad because he should have handed the ball off. Look where the safeties are. Because when you play even though he's more of a dink and dunk quarterback, all their wide receivers in Pittsburgh are flying, right? Well, look at Debo and Ayuk. They can run. So you start being able to do that. That's where, to me, if they're going to win this game with Trey, which is going to be very difficult, you have to take some deep shots. And not just, they run, the play might change a little bit, but they do the touchdown play they threw to Debo. They run plays in that family, right? Long play action stuff that with Jimmy, and then the routes change, but the concepts don't. Play action, you go, they all bite because the run game's working. You're fucking back there eating a hot dog going, who do I want to throw? Now, the difference with Trey is you can move those routes deeper down the field. And I think Trey said in his press conference, we ran a similar concept like that, I think in the preseason game or maybe the Seattle game, that they hit a touchdown. Remember the guy was wide open in the corner, but it was a similar type thing. You can also just run 3 to 5 step drops if you get man-to-man coverage. And part of this goes back to Kyle going, if he's not sure of the coverage, he's not going to call the play. So once he gets more, and it probably won't happen this week, but like with Trey big picture, once you get more comfortable, like I know we're in man. And that's where all the great coaches are. And that's where Kyle is with Jimmy. The problem is Jimmy just can't execute the deep passes. Trey, take these shots. I mean, I would say his best attribute right now of his raw self is just the power in that thing. And it is like rewatching it, it's just like, God, this guy has a much more powerful arm than Jimmy. I think sometimes Jimmy's arm looks more powerful because of how fast he gets rid of the ball. I don't think the ball is relatively, like, compared to the top passers, as powerful as the Staffords, the Kylers, the Treys, the power arm guys.
Yeah.
Josh Allen's, Mahomes.
I think Jimmy's quick release is, for any quarterback getting rid of the ball quickly. but there's release times, and then there's how quickly does it get from A to B, right? So, in other words, Garoppolo could get the ball out quicker than Trey, but the velocity's faster, so it gets to the end result in the same time. And I give Garoppolo a lot of credit, and I said it on the last podcast. I don't know exactly the story behind, Tom Brady went to Tom House, and I don't know did he go to Tom as well, but his release, I think he maximizes what he has physically. Jimmy does, to his credit, because he's clearly he clearly has mechanics that have been heavily worked on. And
he's been coached by some pretty highly paid offensive minds and just coaches.
I do think, and I was maybe, I don't know if you have an opinion on this after watching it a second time, and people listening or watching this have a take. I could be just kind of imagining this, because we talked about it so much in the first, after the Arizona game, how quickly was his release any shorter, or was his motion any shorter against the Texans than it was against Arizona? I think it might have been at the bottom point of where he holds the ball. Not quite. I think he might have brought it up and gotten rid of it quicker than he did against Arizona, but I could be wrong. Again, I didn't spend a lot of time looking at that, just because it wasn't an issue against Houston. But it felt a little quicker.
I watched today. Like, if you really pay attention, it's still a little elongated. I think he was just much more decisive in his decision. When he saw it, he let it rip. And I think part of it is, you can nitpick Josh Allen a little longer, but when Josh sees it, he goes. And I think that's just you just go. You're never going to have Marino, Jimmy, even Derek just whoop, whoop, right? It's just, that's how he gets his torque. But you watch Josh Allen, he gets his torque, but it goes, so it's about part of the worst guy ever, right? And this is why he was such a polarizing guy coming out of college, was Tim Tebow. And people like the number one thing with Tebow was like the release was too long. And then you watched him like when he was, who drafted him? Oh, the Broncos. It was just, it took
in the
so
first
long.
round, you might recall.
It just took so long.
In the first round.
It not only took so long, his arm then wasn't that powerful. So it's a double whammy.
Or accurate.
It was just none of his.
It was really the trifecta.
Yeah.
Slow, inaccurate, weak.
Yeah, it's bad.
There is an aspect to him, I wonder, with Trey. What Kyle said early in the year about how, when Trey Lance is in the game, he doesn't quite know how to call offense for him. It's a challenge, right? Because the defense
doesn't know what he's seeing.
It's different than the defense that they played against Jimmy Garoppolo. I do wonder if they can win this week, or if the Saints lose. But ideally, if they win this week and then head into the playoffs, is there a little pocket that you get, and you get this at the beginning of a player's career before the defense has seen a lot of them, where you can take advantage of what is difficult for you is also difficult for them?
I would say, and this is the one kind of knock so far in his early career for being an athlete, I think people probably assumed he was a little more explosive of an athlete. So part of, I think, the reason you take advantage, I remember early Kyler or Lamar, it was like, holy shit, this guy at any moment, it's like, take off, bro, go. That's not really, like, for him to win, he's kind of got to throw. Now, he occasionally can, like, keep plays alive and run for, I would say under 15 yards. But he's not going to have these plays where it's like, oh, my God, 360 on the sideline, another 15 yards up the field. Like, to me, that's an element of, like, how do you prepare for these guys? Because that became like Lamar and Kyler. Once they, Kyler was a pretty good passer from day one. Lamar really improved. What do? Like, the guy in the open field basically turns into Justin Jefferson, right? Or, Alvin Kamara. Right. That's the one thing you watch him run. He's not, and I told you this, the one run that stood out to me was there was like a scramble where he had enough room, but guys were going to chase him. And I felt like he was running as fast as he could, and it looked like he was running faster than other times. Because I think other times when he scrambles outside the pocket to then run, he's like unsure if, he's, and I would understand this. Does Kyle want me to throw? Did I miss my read? There has to be just an insane amount of information going through the guy's head. I don't want to run, but should I run? Is it there? Like, what was I supposed to do? Did I see the right defense? Fuck, they're actually in zone. That means I can run here. It's just a lot. I think Jalen Hurts a couple weeks ago, I retweeted it, just gave this, they asked him about a specific play, and he gave this like minute soliloquy of how they had coached it in practice, what he had been taught his entire life against the coverage, And then the coverage, he's like, I don't know if they blew the coverage or they just ran the coverage a different way than we'd ever saw. And the guy was in the flat and then the zone dropper. It was like, you have to be so intelligent to just have a shot. And then you have to have years to kind of let it all matriculate in your head.
Do you notice two takes on that? I think it's a good point, like why some young quarterbacks get a fast start. I was texting with Jeff Schwartz because I saw somebody tweet something about the Bucs game. Like, look at these two guys. They don't know who the center is. And I was like, Jeff, what's going on here? He's like, no, they know who the center is. Sue's just lined up in the wrong gap. That's the problem they're having. And whoever the other defensive player was trying to tell him you're in the wrong gap. Usually former players, when you ask them something, will go, well, I don't know what they're coached to do. Like, they get that there's a million different things that could be happening. People who didn't play are always like, I can't believe they did that thing. Idiots. Former players like, I'm not exactly sure what they're supposed to do here because the game is so complicated. And I think that's what's cool about football is your average, most people who know about football can know quite a bit. And there's still like 7 other layers to what's going on the field at any given time. And it's a really layered game. You can enjoy football as a hardcore football film studier, or you can enjoy football as a casual fan or somewhere in the middle, right? There's something for everybody going on in the sport, which is what makes it great. To your point on him running the ball, having watched again several times early in the game, I think the play that I attached to the most to say I think he's still a little bit unsure running the ball, it was a decision he had to make, either to give, I think it was Elijah Mitchell on a 4th and short, or to pull and try to run what he ended up doing, run left to try to get to the stick, which is what he did. He pulled it. And there's
Is that when Eric Reed's brother tackled him in the open field?
Yep. And there was a lot of discussion about should he have pulled it or should he have given it? And my issue, I think the more I watched it, was not should he have pulled or given. My issue was if he just runs straight hard to the sideline, he gets the first down, but he kind of wasn't sure what to do. And I think with Trey Lance, the things that he's sometimes unsure to do in the run game, he's actually pretty sure of himself, I think, at times in the pass game. Now, he's thrown a couple interceptions, 2, in fact, that he did the wrong thing, especially this last week against the Texans. Kyle Shanahan said he should have checked it down or thrown it away. But I think the 2 picks that he's thrown are kind of representative of how confident he is throwing the football at times and how much confidence he has in his arm, because he's made some pretty, and I'm going to use this word, arrogant throws for 2 picks. His pick against Arizona, you're right, remember, was like he rolls out, he's on the run. He tries to, I think he was trying to get it to, was it Travis Benjamin or Ayuk? He tries to like layer it over 2 guys into a hole on the sideline while he's moving. And the pick he had against the Texans was a ridiculous. I mean, there was no window to try and get the ball to Kittle, and he still tried to do it. And I do think these are things that would lead to fast lessons if he were playing every day. And it's why I think that if Trey, unless I'm kind of moving on to the next discussion, if Trey,
I want to end it on this one really quick.
Okay.
I think part of it and the experience part about coming from a smaller school, there's a cocky, like a guy that's being talked about, like kind of a cocky asshole in a good way, is Burrow. Well, if you think about Joe Burrow, he went to Ohio State, had to think in the back of his mind, like, I can't believe they went with Dwayne Haskins over me. And then Dwayne Haskins ended up getting drafted in the first round. But in Joe Burrow's mind, like, I'm better than this guy. And remember, he hurt his thumb or whatever. Then goes to LSU. They're playing all the SEC, which no one can even argue now is by far the best conference. Also, the side they play on is by far the best division in all of college football. He eviscerated them. So when he got here, now he doesn't play like Trey Lance, but his confidence level when he stepped on the field, like, okay, let's roll. I just need some more talent around him. By his second year, he's got talent around him. He's just playing like he played at LSU. The play you're talking about where Reed gets him, Cam Newton's a good example. When he got into the NFL, even year 1, his cockiness as a runner was like, well, I've been running over dudes at Alabama and LSU the last year. I did that. My year at Florida, I was trucking dudes when I was a scout team quarterback. He's secure in his cockiness. Like, I'm not, like, part of being a quarterback, you got to have a little cockiness. And I think Trey is figuring it out, because that play is like, I wonder if he thought, like, could I kind of truck this guy? I'm bigger than, I think Justin Reed's his name, Stanford. Yep. Could I get this guy? Or am I fast enough to get to the corner? Well, he's not like just secure enough in just his own ability to pick a lane And then he kind of half-assed it. And then Justin Reed's been playing in the NFL now for several years, fucking destroyed him. That guy, I left that game thinking, like, I kind of like Reed. Like, he's more athletic than his brother. Like, he's a more fluid athlete, but he's a hitter. And I think part of it is just the only way for a guy that it's rare because it was the Parcells thing and it was conventional wisdom. And part of it is like in the NFL, it's not the NBA. You've played in college for 3 years. So at minimum, you're probably a 2-year starter. Like you've just had years of starting. And most guys that get drafted, especially high, are Division I players, but a lot of Power 5 guys. This guy is just, there's a big jump. Like anyone that's listening to this that have skied, there's a big difference between the bunny hills and like the double black diamonds. But once you get good at skiing, if you've done some double black diamonds, they're not as intimidating. And I'm not even talking about like whether he's got to work on accuracy and just basic things, but there is just like, I am faster than this guy. Like when Lamar plays, I noticed it in Tyler Huntley watching the Rams against the Ravens. Like Tyler Huntley's a cocky player in a good way. Like when he runs, he's like, I'm going to beat this guy. Well, he's been doing it for like 3 or 4 years now. Started forever at Utah. They were beating the crap out of people. Now he makes the Ravens, and then they keep pumping him up. Then he has some success. They're like, bro, run. You know, I think part of it is just a built-in confidence that most guys in the NFL get a large percentage of that when they're playing at Michigan, when they're playing at Ohio State, when they're playing at, Fresno State. Like, you just build in the reps. Like, I think there's a pretty big difference of the reps he got.
Yeah,
you know?
it's a big jump to make, right? To go, what worked there is going to work here. You know, it's one thing to go from high school and then you go to college and it worked in college, cool. Maybe it'll work in the NFL, cool. But his jump is so big, and he hasn't. There's also, I still think, an element of, I don't know if rust is the word, but it's just been a while. Because I do wonder if he's looking for big runs at times. Like, is he trying to break off? Because we watched his college tape. He had several big runs in college. He hasn't really had that run yet in the NFL. And I think, having never done it, the number one thing, if you did the hypothetical that everyone always says, if I gave you the football and said there's going to be a hole, could you pick up a yard in the NFL? I think the answer to that question is no. But the one thing I do know is this: if you don't choose immediately which hole to hit, you have no chance. If you don't make a decision right away, if you're ever caught between cut and sprint, you're going to get blown up.
Do you think you could get out of bounds on the toss play? Just get to the out of bounds?
I don't think I could. Even if I ran straight out of bounds.
You couldn't. Most people couldn't.
No chance.
Yeah.
No chance. All right. Let's go on to the next level of this conversation with Trey Lance. And it's kind of a carryover of what we just talked about, which is I think if he had played all year long, that he would be having the most promising season from a rookie quarterback right now. I don't know if he'd be having the best season, but the reason I say most promising is because I think he'd be doing things physically that Mac Jones just cannot do. And I think he'd be by far more productive than any of the other rookie quarterbacks. It'd be between him and Mac Jones in this conversation. And Mac might have better numbers in that instance then, but I think Trey would be doing things every single week because he started 2 games, and in both starts, he's done things that most players just can't do. He's done things that make you go, okay, that is at least the physical talent. Whether or not Kyle Shanahan overpaid, he is displaying some of the physical tools that are worthy of where he was drafted. I think he'd be better than Trevor Lawrence right now. I think he'd be better than Justin Fields right now. I'd be better than Zach Wilson right now. That's my belief based on watching him start 2 games in this offense with this group of players. And I think part of it is what we talked about with his interceptions. I think the 2 interceptions he's thrown, and who knows how many he'd have if he's had 1 every start, so he, might have 17 at this point.
Well, you know who leads the league? You know who leads the league
in picks?
Yeah.
Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah,
and he's got 17. So
yep.
Over 1 a game. I think even those interceptions, like we talk about, are plays that they're not a result of physical errors so much as they are a result of mental, like trying to do something that you don't need to try to do. And I think that's an area where quarterbacks can learn really quickly if given the chance to learn the difference. It'd be one of those classic, like week 6s. Kyle Shanahan told us before the game, all he wanted to see was Trey throw it away in that spot. You hear that a lot with young quarterbacks. Guy, we fawn. Oh, he just threw it away in that spot. Great decision. Don't try to do too much. And I think the interceptions he's thrown are examples of a guy maybe not forcing the issue because he feels a pressure to do too much, but just trying to find his way, make some plays that physically he's been able to make in years past. And, who knows if he's starting every week, maybe that interception he threw against the Texans, maybe he makes the decision to do something else faster. Maybe he sells the fake better, but maybe he just checks it down or throws the ball away if that's the 15th or 16th game he's played instead of the second game he started.
Well, Lawrence has 17, and he's played every game.
10 touchdowns.
Zach Wilson and Justin Fields have both been injured during the season. Now, Trey, he's played 2.5 games, and he got injured after his first start.
Yep.
So I don't know there's a guarantee, given the way he plays and given he would take a lot more hits probably than Mac has actually taken a decent amount of hits, but they're pocket hits. He's not running. Would he have gotten injured? And maybe he would have learned quicker who he can. And maybe that's where he tried to build on the second game from that first game of knowing when he can run. He's like, I don't want to take hits because there was a scramble up the middle / it might have just been a quarterback draw where the guys were kind of coming. He hit the ground before they got there. Now, he's not a slider, but he's a diver, and then those guys couldn't hit him, which always makes me nervous, right? Yeah. Now, I don't want you to do something you can't do, but you see how easy Kyler Murray does a slide and get up, or Aaron Rodgers? Like, they are protecting themselves, Like, when you dive, you're Cam Newton. Like, you're going to take hits.
Think about it from Kyler's perspective. He has always played against bigger players his whole life, probably, right?
His entire life.
Trey has predominantly played against players not as big as him.
And he was a star baseball player, right? So, he slides.
And that's true. Yeah.
I think there's an element
Kyler.
there.
Yep.
But I do think it's fair to say, like, Zach Wilson's, his ratio, 12 games started, 11 picks. Fields was 10 games started, 10 picks. So, Trey's 2-2. Like, turning the ball over, Matt Stafford has a bunch of picks. Like, now where he makes it up, where I'd say he's the difference, like he has 38 touchdowns.
See, that to me would be the difference between
Mac has 21 touchdowns. Do you think if Trey had started 16 games, assuming he could stay healthy? I don't know if he does.
I do. Maybe
25, but they don't really play that way.
No,
or
but
is that just because Jimmy? I don't know. We're going to find out next year.
I think his threat to run, we'd add a couple running touchdowns, I think, on the goal line. I think would open up the passing game on the goal line. But I think that he would have – this, to me, would be the difference between – and I should mention Davis Mills, too. Davis Mills is second among rookie quarterbacks in touchdown passes with 13. But I think if you're going to mention the interceptions of these rookies, you should mention the touchdowns, too. So Lawrence is 10 touchdowns, 17 picks. Zach Wilson's 8 touchdowns, 11 picks. Justin Fields is 7 touchdowns, 10 picks. I think Lance is 5 touchdowns, 2 picks, by the way. I think Lance, while he would throw picks, I think he'd have more touchdowns than interceptions. And I don't think it'd be like 13-10 Davis Mills. I think it'd be in the Mac Jones range.
Yeah, and you're right. He'd have some rushing touchdowns. Now, Zach Wilson has, to my count, 4 rushing touchdowns, and Fields only has 2. But, like, those guys are athletic players, right?
Yeah. I think he'd be a better runner today. I thought after the draft.
Listen, I'm not trying to cape for Trevor Lawrence. I just kind of went with conventional wisdom, this great prospect. I can't pretend I watched him that much beside the playoff games just because their regular season games are hard to watch, right? The Clemson over the Trevor Lawrence era, like Boston College, UNC, it sucks. He has been terrible. Now, their team is, of all the teams, he is by far in the biggest train wreck. Hell, the Bears, they've been winning some games, right? The Jets are playing hard. Hell, they gave the Jags are a joke. Everyone's been forwarding us the thing on Twitter how they're showing up in clown masks. Like, it's do you almost give them a pass this year? Like, I don't even know. I don't even know what to make of it.
Yeah, I don't know what to make of it either. I do think the times I've watched him, it's at least been obvious to me. Like, physically, he still looks.
But that's never been
super athletic.
He's tall. He's got a good arm. He can run.
So. You'd like for him to. It's a mess. They were a mess.
How many teams, Guy, have back-to-back number 1 overall picks? A lot of teams, like the Bengals, are a good example. They get Joe Burrow, number 1 pick. He gets hurt in the middle of the season, so they have to start terrible quarterbacks. They're terrible. They still draft 5. When you draft back-to-back number 1 overall, and they're going to get number 1 overall kind of easily this year. Like, they're cruising to the number 1 overall. That's pretty embarrassing.
The last team to do so, it's happened 3 times. 76-77, the Bucs were a joke then.
Yucks.
They were a joke again in the 80s when it happened.
It happened to them twice?
Happened to them twice. And then it happened in 94, 95 to the Bengals. Can you remember who? Any guesses who they went?
Well,
defense?
one of them would have been the Oregon quarterback, right? Oh no, that was
that was later. That was Achille later.
Dan Wilkinson.
Correct.
The
other one's
Carter.
easier. Yep. Great knowledge. Great fucking knowledge. Yeah.
Remember when running backs used to go number 1 overall?
Well,
Gettleman's like, I tried.
One of them, I could swear it was Arian Foster playing the guy in the movie Draft Day. His name was like Ray Donovan or something. But he goes like top 10 because they have 2 1s. Because remember, Costner traded 3 1s to move from like 7 to 1 and then got all 3 of them back.
And moved back?
Yeah, then moves back. And then the Seahawks take Bo Callahan and then he gets his running back who's like his dad played for the Browns, whatever. Yeah, that's it. Those were the old days.
Is that when the one coach at like Iowa, who's Bo Callahan's coach, lied to him on the phone? Like, he's a great kid.
Wisconsin. Yeah, no one came to his birthday party.
He loves football. And then he calls him back. He's like, tell me about his birthday party.
P. Diddy as Bo Callahan's agent.
That's pretty
so, yeah, man, I said before the draft that I thought whoever the Niners drafted had the best at quarterback, if they took the quarterback, would have the best chance to be the offensive rookie of the year. It didn't mean he'd be guaranteed to be better than the rest of them. But given Kittle and Debo and the run game and all of that, he'd just be best set up. Well, it turned out, it'd be hard to have a better year from a productivity standpoint than 68%, 3,500 yards, 21 touchdowns, 12 picks, and maybe 11 wins for Mac Jones. I'm not saying the Niners would have more wins if Trey had been the starting quarterback, but I'm confident enough in him right now, based on what we've seen, to say that he would be having the most promising rookie year, maybe the best one, but definitely the most promising. And I think, would you agree with this? Like, if we drew a line and said, tell me the quarterbacks having a good rookie season on one side and having a bad rookie season on the other side. On the good side, you'd put Mac Jones, and you'd probably put Davis Mills.
Yeah.
And the rest of them you'd put on the other side?
I think you would just, to be more, Trevor, you might put bad, but I think you'd have to put the circumstance. I think Justin Fields and Zach Wilson would just be like limited information. Hard to kind of tell. It's hard for me to make a judgment. Just because they've each only
played 12 games.
And the team sucks.
Well, I know that's what I'm saying. I'm not saying they suck. I'm just saying, has it gone well or poorly?
Yeah. I would say Zach poorly, Fields not great.
Okay. I think Lance would be in the it's gone well. That's my ultimate point, is I think Lance would be in the smaller category, which is it's gone well category.
It would have been difficult. I would say this. It would have been because to me, Mac Jones isn't even close to the offensive rookie of the year. It would have taken for him to win that award, because obviously, Jamar Chase, who is having a historic rookie season, could Trey Lance have had, 28 touchdowns, including running total, and 12, 13 picks, and they win 11 games. But he's the Niners quarterback and doing explosive shit, and this game shouldn't even matter this weekend. They'd already be in the playoffs.
That's the irony. If Jimmy doesn't get hurt, they might beat the Titans and already be in the playoffs. You wouldn't be getting Trey Lance right now, but you would be guaranteed playoffs.
It's hard for me to say that because
I know.
Jimmy played well in spurts after he threw the bad pick in that game, so it's I don't know.
I know.
Honestly, we've all seen Jimmy with healthy fingers, and he made that same pass. Even though that one slow motion was weirder than others because the way it came out of his hand. But I feel like a Jimmy apologist here, but yeah, it's hard to know.
No, I understand.
It's been a bizarre. I think big picture, it's pretty nuts. A lot of random bad shit had to happen for that. They should not be in this position. It's pretty disappointing that they have to fight for the last game of the season to get in. They are better than this.
We talked about this on Sunday, but it's a pretty big failure if they missed the playoffs and didn't develop Trey Lance. Now, you could argue, well, maybe he did develop sitting, and I would say you might be right about that. We won't know the answer to that until a month into next season. But if they missed the playoffs and didn't play Trey Lance, and then next year we're in early October, and it's well, you know what? Trey Lance just almost there. You go, well, okay, so are you going to miss the playoffs in 22? I would say this, regardless of what happens now, but especially if they miss the playoffs this year, they've They've then got to make the playoffs next year, which again,
good thing
I
they
would
get
say
a third. They get a third place schedule.
it's true. I would say this. I wouldn't write that. I think they very well could make the playoffs next year. I'm not saying they can't, because they could. I think they could have made the playoffs this year with Trey Lance as their quarterback. I think they could be in the same position.
NFC gets the home game next year for the
17th
game.
Oh, that's big. So, but my point is just that's a conversation for another time, but that will be the expectation going into the year. You didn't play Trey Lance next year, so hopefully he's ready to go and you can go be, a playoff level team in 2022.
Agreed.
All right, John, before we go any further, let's tell the people about Indeed. Indeed.com/ham. Right now, where you sign up at Indeed.com/ham, you get a $75 credit to sponsor your first job post.
Yep. Guy, Indeed.com/ham. Here's the thing. Indeed is the only job site. You see today came out 4.5 million people quit their job. So if you run a business, if you're part of a company, the HR firm, anything that's involved in hiring, there are a lot of human beings just out there. And obviously a lot of people need to make hires. Well, the group of individuals looking for jobs, a lot of people out there. So Indeed partners with you on every step of the hiring process. They find great talent through time-saving tools like Indeed Instant Match, assessments, and virtual interviews. With Instant Match, as soon as you sponsor a post, you get a short list of quality candidates. They're able to use these queries and algorithms and find you the person that you want for your job. Hiring's difficult. We can relate. It's hard. So use Indeed.com/ham.
Yep. It is an unbelievably powerful hiring partner where you can attract, interview, and hire all in one place. So this is like your own person. You are the athletics director and they are your search firm. But unlike some search firms, they do all the heavy lifting for you. And, they're not going to cost you $800,000 like a college football search firm might. Actually, like 50 to 125. It's a lot of money. Good scam they got going. Indeed.com/ham. Okay. So this is where you get your applicants have over 135 assessments, from tests to cooking to coding. Pick what skills are important to you. And then you get a clear view of your top talents, abilities faster. Right now, go to Indeed.com/ham. Terms and conditions apply. If you need to hire, you need Indeed.
$75 off.
Podcast also brought to you by BetterHelp. BetterHelp.com/hampod. BetterHelp.com/hampod. We are sponsored by BetterHelp.com/hampod. BetterHelp online therapy. Check them out at BetterHelp.com/hampod.
Here's the thing, guy. This is not a crisis line. It's not self-help. It is professional counseling done securely online. You'll get timely and thoughtful responses, plus you can schedule weekly video or phone sessions. The service is available for clients worldwide, all without ever having to sit in the uncomfortable waiting room. Listen, we all need someone to talk to sometimes. That's where BetterHelp.com/hampod comes in. All virtual, your home office, your computer, wherever you are, your phone, in your car. No one has to know.
Live chat.
Live, whatever you need. We all need someone to talk to. I mean, every single human can relate to that, and that's where BetterHelp comes in. BetterHelp.com/hampod. 10% off.
Invest in everything else. Why not invest in your mind? BetterHelp.com/hampod for 10% off. Yep, good point. BetterHelp.com/hampod. BetterHelp.com/hampod. Iceman on YouTube says, "Can you be my therapist, you guys?"
Yeah, what are your issues?
If they're like Garoppolo, Lance related, we can help. If it's real mental health, then I would say consult a professional.
I mean, depending on what the topic is, I could probably help you out.
Yeah, I mean, we got takes, but
But I think most, we've all been through stuff. Sometimes
absolutely. You just need someone to listen.
Yeah,
there's no doubt.
I'm not a great listener. Is the problem.
By the way, here's a note for you. Check this out. Elijah Mitchell has had at least 100 rushing yards in 5 of his first 10 career games. Only 3 other rookie running backs since 1990 have had at least 5 100-yard games in their first 10. Those other 3 are Edgerrin James, who had 7 100-yard games in his first 10, Adrian Peterson, who had 6 100-yard games in his first 10 career games. And Ezekiel Elliott, who did it 5 times, same number as Elijah Mitchell. Wow.
Damn.
How about that?
Sometimes, you got to give them credit. They've hit on some later round picks. And, there's 2 ways to look at it. If they could do a redo, they would not have taken Trey Sermon.
Yeah.
Because they found Breda as an undrafted free agent. They've now found their starting running back as a 6th round pick. And Mostert came out of nowhere, right? He had been cut by countless NFL teams.
COVID list.
With a knee that doesn't work. I saw that. It's like, okay, we're putting Raheem Mostert on the COVID list. But it does show you, one thing, if I could tell Kyle and John, now they have to keep drafting running backs because they lose them, but don't ever take one before pick 200. They're just take corners and defensive linemen and offensive linemen. Take all your swings there. Wide receivers, but running backs, you guys just don't waste the ammo, because of all the redos they could have, that has to feel like one, because they found a legit player. And you can it's so easy to find guys off the scrap heap. Taking a 3rd round running back, you're kind of hoping he's going to be Alvin Kamara, Dalvin Cook, right? I mean, those guys go in 2nd and 3rd round, right? Starting running backs all around the league. So it's a positive, because the kid is, you watch him, you go, this guy's really good, right? He can run inside, he can run outside, he can catch the ball, he's elusive, he's physical, he can break arm tackles. I wouldn't call him a blazer, but he's fast, he's shifty, he's patient, but he's decisive. I mean, running back's my favorite position in the NFL. I remember Keith Williams, who's now on the wide receiver coach with T. Martin for the Ravens, used to get in arguments with all his wide receivers. He's his Twitter account's at Wideouts. He's Devontae Adams' best friend / mentor / coach. He actually said one time, running back's actually my favorite position. And everyone looked at him weird. But it made sense. It encapsulates. There was a play on Derek's. Did you see the play that went viral on Derek Carr to Renfro?
Yeah.
Josh Jacobs had a blitz pickup. Actually, it might have been the touchdown to Renfro. You have to blitz pick up as a running back. Full on sprinting, outside linebackers, inside linebackers, sometimes defensive linemen. Whoever the guy is, if he's coming across your face, you have to take him out, on top of catching the ball, running inside, running outside. It is what Kyle asked these guys to do. Is there can't be a more violent position in the league at running back. I've watched Derrick Henry for years. I know he got hurt this year, but he does not take the violent collisions for a guy with 7 million attempts that I've seen Kyle's running backs take just this season alone. Sometimes when he did, I mean, we hopped on this before we went live after the Houston game. With under 5 minutes, they're still running Debo. I was what are we doing? You're going to get this guy killed. Because I'll give all these guys credit, especially the younger players. Debo's the oldest of the group. They don't act like I'm not trying to get hit. They seek contact.
Yeah. Well,
a lot of people act like the NFL is, the pussy version of what it used to be. And in many aspects it is, just because the hitting. I understand, we might be talking to a hard-hitting safety this week.
Sure.
Where those guys, go, this is a different game. I get it. You watch Kyle's running backs, you can't tell me it looks that different than it's ever looked in the collisions that are going down.
Yeah, maybe it's a softer version of the NFL, but it's not soft. And I think, to your point, we spent a lot of time on Kittle specifically with that. Other tight ends don't have to block like Kittle blocks. Running backs, it's just, we talk about it every year at the beginning of the season. You're not going to get on the field, regardless of how your offense plays or what your coach prioritizes. Even if your coach doesn't run the ball much, if they prioritize throwing the football, there's still going to be a requirement of the running back to understand and be willing to block. And to your point, receivers block. That's a big deal. No block, no rock. But they're blocking other DBs for the most part, right? They're not blocking guys twice their size.
Most DBs are not Sherman that love to tackle. You're just kind of out there holding.
And even if you're lucky enough as a running back to end up blocking a corner on a blitz, well, that guy's got a 15-yard sprint coming at you.
Did you see the viral video of, I think his name is Pickens, the wide receiver for Georgia?
Yeah, it's George Pickens, I think, right?
George Pickens, who shushed him at the sideline, grabbed the DB, destroyed him, and then shushed him again. That was a play where sure we'll get into Harbaugh. Maybe he's like, yeah, maybe we can't ever beat these guys. That was eye opening. Like I bet that corner views himself as a pretty good player, right? He got destroyed.
And Pickens is viewed as he's known for being a receiver, right? Like he's a really good receiver.
Yeah.
Yeah. By the way, I did start thinking about not to go off on Elijah, but I mean, Juszczyk's it's just the more you watch him, and we've watched him for years now. I mean, he's been on the Niners for 5 years, but the more you watch Juszczyk, the more you just understand why he's so important to Shanahan, because he is so unique. His ability to catch imperfect throws, his ability to block, his ability to block in the run game and in the pass game, really. The amount of attention you have to spend on him so he's used in misdirections all the time, right? There's just not a lot of guys like him. He's not having a career year, but he's having probably, I don't know, it's hard to say. I haven't really dived into the numbers, but maybe one of his best years as a Niner. I mean, he's got 30 catches. Now that he's going to play another game, if he has 4 catches in this game, his career high is 33 as a Niner. He's had better receiving years in Baltimore, but
do you know who the Niners' backup fullback is?
The guy from Fresno State.
Yeah.
What's his name?
I don't know how you Hokett. It might be
Hokett. Yeah, Josh Hokett. Yeah.
That's kind of cool.
I think the thing with Elijah, and it goes back to what we said about him when we watched, if you go back and watch an old YouTube we did after the draft, and you watch his Louisiana tape and you go, this guy it is so easy to picture him as a Kyle Shanahan running back if you go back and watch the video we did online, if you can just search the YouTube, our channel, type in Elijah Mitchell, you'll find it. And what we said at the time was he just looks, because of how hard he hits every run, like a Kyle Shanahan running back. And I think to me, the simplest way to describe what I've seen from Mitchell this year is he looks in the NFL the same way he looked in the whatever league Louisiana plays in.
Yeah. I mean,
which is a leap. It's a leap up in ability and opposition.
He was clearly one of that guy's best players for a couple of years, and that guy's now the head coach at Florida.
Billy Napier.
That's how they would have said it if he would have taken the LSU job.
Yeah, that's how Brian Kelly says it. The Sun Belt, John. So he looks in the NFL the same way he looked in the Sun Belt,
listen, I love the draft, always have, still do to this day. Now I get bored, in the later rounds, but the later rounds are cool after the fact, right? Like now. Like I couldn't have jumped for joy about Elijah Mitchell, but it's easy to go, what a pick. Or, you can do it with whoever you're a fan of, right? Hunter Renfrow. I was texting with a buddy that does the SEC last night. I'm like, God, how good's Hunter Renfrow? He's like, the craziest thing about Renfrow is like everyone in the area loved him. It was harder to convince the GMs and the assistant GMs that were in the office because he's like, I went to countless Clemson games, and I think it's like this with an Elijah Mitchell, but it's probably different at that level, where you just leave and you go, the best player on the field was Elijah Mitchell. The best player on the field was Hunter Renfrow. And you love the guy, but then, the GM, they're in the building, they have this wide view, and it's impossible. Like a GM can't go through every school, because when you go through these schools, I'll vividly remember, they start telling you the stories about the kid, and you like the player, you're like, I fucking love this guy, and they're just every school, in I'd say a large percentage of the guys that are drafted are relatively like high character, hard workers. And if you like their film, it's easy to fall in love with guys. And I've talked to people about Elijah Mitchell. He's a guy, and I say this all the time, just because you draft a guy in the 5th round, he might have been one of your favorite players in the draft. I'm not saying Elijah Mitchell was, but I bet there were a lot of scouts. Hunter Renfrow is a good example. Like, I loved Hunter Renfrow in the draft. I thought he was going to be a starting slot receiver for a decade. But I couldn't convince my GM because it's like, we got to have Jamar Chase. I was like, well, what am I going to do? There are only so many Jamar Chases. But then, there aren't Hunter Renfrows every year. There aren't. But with running backs, there kind of are Elijah Mitchells every year. Every single year. Like, there are starting running backs coming from, all over the draft. Hell, we're seeing it now. Like, you got a starting running back. What's Najee? 1st rounder. Stud. Elijah, 6th rounder. Stud. I'm sure we could find other guys throughout. The Eagles have a guy, I think he went to Memphis. Gainville, I think his name is. He's, Cassandra's got hurt. He plays a lot. He's good. Every round, you just boom, boom, starter. Which is not, obviously a quarterback. That's not the case. Probably the case at wide receiver. Like you could, if you watch enough NFL football on Sunday, you can find a wide receiver who's a starter on every team. And like, oh, there's the guy's a third rounder. This guy's a fifth rounder.
Yeah. The Patriots running back Stevenson, fourth
What
round.
round's he in?
Ramondre Stevenson, fourth round.
Stud. I don't. Where did that guy go to school?
Oklahoma.
Yeah.
Little old school called Oklahoma.
They ever produced an
Hunter
NFL
Renfro.
player?
Where's that guy from? Oh, Clemson. Yeah. Clemson.
Well, I was just searching him on Twitter because to me he's a fascinating player. They like Clemson, like one of their fan accounts put out, like we just had 3,000-yard receivers, and one of them was not DeAndre Hopkins, and it was Higgins, Renfro, and Mike Williams. And you start thinking, you're like, well, no wonder they've been so good. They had all these NFL wide receivers, and they had NFL quarterbacks, and then obviously they have NFL players at other positions, but that's how you beat Saban. It's why I actually feel pretty good about our bet. Like, we are betting against, like, that team, I know they did it to Michigan, but, like, to beat Alabama, which really no one ever does, except Clemson and Ohio State did once. Do you know, I went back to that Ohio State box score. Zeke ran for 240 yards. Zeke, who went fourth in the draft, right? And they had Mike Thomas, who had a good game. So it's like, to beat Alabama, you need NFL offensive skill guys that are going to be awesome at the next level. Because I know Bama has that. Georgia does have the one tight end that's from Napa, who's pretty sweet. The big white guy, who's like 88. He caught a bunch of balls against Michigan. Think how good you had left my house. We had a little watch party on the second game. This guy went to Napa High School. Can you imagine how good that guy was in high school to get an offer from the University of Georgia over the last, like, obviously, like, in the peak of their powers?
I could be wrong, but for those of you not familiar with California geography, I don't know. Like, is Napa playing? Who's Napa playing? Is Vintage? Is that Napa?
Well, they used to play in the Monticello League against Davis High School.
Okay, they did. Yeah, is Vintage High
against,
School in Napa? Is that where?
Yeah, Vintage is in Napa.
So they've playing some Sacramento schools, right? Then
and what we kind of came to the conclusion.
Vanden?
I would imagine maybe the kid came from a little money, went to an SEC camp. That's how he gets spotted. But who knows? Isn't the guy that took over after Jared Goff, maybe a couple years later at Iowa State? Isn't the Iowa State quarterback from Marin County?
Iowa's quarterback.
Not Purdy. Not Purdy.
No,
but
Iowa. The big guy. Iowa had two guys this year, Jack Plummer and the other guy.
Yeah, who's an Iowa guy. Went to, I think, Goff's
Marin
high school.
Catholic. Yeah.
And
Will C. Wood?
We'll see Wood. Yeah, we'll see Woods. But isn't that Fairfield / Vacaville?
Yeah, that's not Napa. But we're just getting some comments. Some good knowledge.
That kind of gets my juices flowing.
All right, John. How about, speaking of getting your juices flowing, let's read from Bruce Feldman. I've only got like 3 Bruce Feldman books behind me.
Do you know what happened? Your camera went. I thought you were in the middle of an earthquake.
Oh, that just shook?
Because I think when you turned around, you bumped the desk, and I'm like, oh my God, the earthquake's happening right now.
I'll knock on wood for that. That day's coming if we do enough streaming. All right. Bruce Feldman in The Athletic wrote this. And now The Athletic is hearing rumblings from both the NFL side and Michigan that Jim Harbaugh might be tempted to leave the Wolverines to return to the NFL. Quote, I think it's real, said one source this week when asked about the possibility of Harbaugh being interested in the NFL. Feldman would go on to write extensively about the Raiders and Harbaugh and would include a line that maybe the Bears make sense for Jim. You and I have been talking about this for a while now, the possibility of Harbaugh returning to coach in the NFL. And now the discussion has begun once again. And we know once Feldman writes it, because you texted me, you're like, Harbaugh to the Raiders? And I said, wait, did it just happen? I just read Feldman's piece like an hour ago. Because I started going through Twitter and people are talking about it now. So it's picking up steam.
It does make some sense. Once upon a time, you and I had a show associated on a company that was in business with the Raiders, and we wanted it to happen. It would have been incredible for business. It was much more biased. Like, it might have helped them be good, but it would have been incredible for business. It didn't happen. And there were some stories that Mark Davis might have talked to him under a bridge. Do you remember that? But remember when they mutually parted? He was Michigan. If I remember correctly, when they mutually departed after that last game, 2014, Michigan had an announcement within a couple hours. Like, there was no delay. He was like the head coach of Michigan pretty immediately. Uh, I I would be shocked if Mark Davis is not very interested, because I think the one thing you still need, and Rich has done an admirable job, and the Raiders are, I think, easily becoming one of like the feel-good stories of the year. Just what Derek, Renfro, the coaching staff, like how they're even in this game. I mean, guy, they just had another DUI. I mean, yesterday, who his agent claimed that it wasn't an actual DUI, but it's like, bro, you can pull over at 4 a.m. asleep.
Asleep on an off ramp in a parking garage, different than like an off ramp on a highway. My question.
He was not he was not like on a side ramp, just like getting off a highway.
It was on a parking garage ramp. So my question would be, did he just fall asleep while trying to drive, or did he realize I got a problem? I better stop the vehicle and just go to sleep. But in any event, it's bad.
Oh, I didn't read that much into it. But Jim Harbaugh, like at the end of the day, Vegas needs to be like, this is a really cool moment for them, right? Having this big game at Allegiant. I went and looked, like the tickets are really expensive. Vegas is a big game town, and they really haven't had that many big games. Now they've only had fans for this 1 year, but part of having big games, you got to be good. And I think you watch it like, well, Ruggs is never coming back, right? One clip I saw of like Derek running for his life was because Brandon Parker can't block anybody. And I saw that Dubois quoted the tweet, and it's like, why is this guy a right tackle? And Dubois was like, well, because the guy you drafted to be the right tackle couldn't play it, and you moved him to left guard, and Leatherwood was like in the other corner. So, they got some problems. And Jim Harbaugh historically has been a fixer, and he's a pretty famous name, but I would say way different than, while he has some similarities to Gruden, right? His name is just so big. Like, you just say Harbaugh, people just get a reaction. Everyone's got an opinion. He's been pretty consistently a winner, right? Like, he's a pretty good football coach. He's a much better football. I know Gruden has the one Super Bowl, but like over the last 15 years, it's not even a question who's the better football coach. It would be an upgrade as a football coach.
He's elevated everything he's taken over.
Pretty substantially, right?
4 for 4. Yeah. And the last, you would say in both San Francisco and Michigan, and really Stanford, it's been tied to, the staff he had at Stanford was obviously a very good staff. And he had luck. The staff he had with the 49ers, proven again, Greg Roman knows what he's doing. And he had Vic Fangio and Brad
a good
Seeley.
Defensive coordinator.
So he had a very good defensive coordinator, but his offensive staff, they took a step forward, right? He went and got Josh Gaddis a couple of years ago, and they've elevated their offense.
His defensive coordinator is like a younger guy that he hired from Baltimore. I think is pretty good.
That's right, because he replaced Dr. Blitz.
Yeah.
Who's now the coach at UMass. But he would need that. He would still need that. But I think one thing is clear, like Jim Harbaugh can hire. Jim Harbaugh.
Maybe that's the reason they've been losing Ohio State. Like, I don't know if I'd blitz Justin Fields and C.J. Stroud when they got 7 million Marvin Harrison Juniors. Like, let's just play some coverage. Dr. Blitz.
Dr. Blitz. So I think it would work. I think it would be high on Mark's list. I think you're right. I think if he didn't take the Michigan job after he left the Niners, he would have taken the Raiders job. I believe that. I think he would have been the Raiders coach. I think it made sense for him, obviously, to go to his alma mater. And it made sense for him if he was going to leave the Niners. I think for him personally, to be like, all right, I'm not going to get run out of the Niners and then go to another NFL job. It's an easier, I'm resetting sell if I go to Michigan to help my alma mater. And on one hand, you could say he just beat Ohio State. He's got it rolling. Now this is the time to stay. To me, you could argue he beat Ohio State. He's probably not going to do that every year. He elevated Michigan clearly. This is the time to go.
Didn't Michigan make him the highest paid coach in the country when he got that job?
I think when they hired him, but then last year they cut his pay.
No, I know, but I mean for like 5 years he was making like 9 or 10 million. He was making 9 million back when 9 million was, most guys were making like 3 or 4.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. So this could also be part of that, right? You cut my pay last year, pandemic. It's time for me to get my money back and then some. I just had a great year. I did you a solid. But now you're going to have to get on your knees and beg me to stay by paying me a ton of money. That's the position he's got Michigan in right now, which also means that he's got the Raiders in a position to have to pay him a ton of money. Now, Mark Davis wasn't afraid to cut $100 million for John Gruden, so he could do it.
I don't know if I do the 10-year deals. Like I
wouldn't either.
5.
The question for Mark is he getting out of the other $10 million he owes John? Is he getting out of the other 10?
It's probably a fluid situation right now that I'm sure the lawyers, are going back and forth.
Doesn't want to have $20 million committed to a coach next year.
Well, how many lawsuits does John have going on? Is he fighting Mark? He's definitely fighting the league. Like, is Gruden just going to be in and out of the courtroom for a while?
Yeah, I don't know. I would not count.
Does he have enough? Does he have enough pettiness like a Mike Leach? Like, I ain't letting this go, guys.
Somebody in my DMs claimed that it got closer than even people know last time with the Raiders. And maybe that's why Michigan ended up paying so much money, is because Michigan had a competitor for him. And ultimately it was, I think, again, a great sell for him. I've been to a Michigan game. I've been to 2 Michigan games. I've been to one when Harbaugh was coaching there. And it's incredible. Like, I understand why it's a big pull for him. But his history says he doesn't stay places forever. And it's not just the Raiders now. I mean, the Bears, he played quarterback for the Bears, and that's a historic franchise, right? He's got a couple of good options.
I would say this, though. Now, Derek is going to need a new contract. That's just going to be one of the biggest offseason conversations, whatever happens on Sunday Night Football, right? If Derek outplays Herbert, I just don't see how they have a choice.
I think if he wins, I think what's been impressive with Derek the last few weeks, he has not put up big numbers. He's thrown picks, but he's in the big moments made plays against the Browns, in the big moments made plays against the Broncos, and in the big moments made plays against the Colts. So I just think it's if he wins and goes to the playoffs, John, I don't think he's got to outplay Herbert.
He actually, to me, feels very Jim Harbaugh-y quarterback. When you just watch the quarterbacks that Jim's played with, even like McNamara now, like he likes an athletic guy, but he ultimately a thrower of the football. Obviously, Andrew Luck, was the best version of that. Alex Smith. Like, Jim historically has not demanded to get Patrick Mahomes, right? I think he'd look at Derek Carr like, I can win with this guy. We got some pieces. Let's add some more pieces, and let's fucking roll. Now, the big question mark would be with Harbaugh, does that mean Mayock's
He's the second best quarterback he's ever had, behind Luck.
Better than Alex? Alex more accomplished career. I think so. I think if you gave Andy Reid which quarterback would you wanted at 28 years old, he would have gone with Derek. Though I think he likes I don't know. But Derek's character, they would have got along really well too. I do just wonder, there are just some question marks. Like, does everyone get fired? Does Jim even want to fuck with the personnel staff? That'd be my question. Like, to me, Jim, but he'd have enough juice to get that. Does Mark really want that? Like, I think he just saw that and it was kind of got a little weird fast. But ideally, you can't force people to get married, right? I mean, you can, but it happens in other countries. And a lot of people that I knew actually a girl who's married to a buddy who got her way out of it. She was in an arranged marriage her whole life, because in the culture in Pakistan, and pulled a curveball and it didn't happen. And I think, in a weird way, we can't even relate to that, but I think people can in job situations. We talk about it a lot because it's a public business, and like football or pro sports, shotgun marriages. It happens a lot in companies where it's just not public, right? It happens at, big corporations where you have to work for a guy. I don't know the guy. You may never like him, and he's just buying his time. They're like, hey, can you try to work with this guy? But he already knows he wants to get rid of him. I do wonder how maybe they're friends. Maybe they've known each other for a while. They feel like maybe they'd get along. Like Gruden, Mayock, and Harbaugh all kind of feel like they're cut from the same cloth of just like they like football more than everything else in life, beside maybe like their wife and their daughter, But that is a big question mark. Like, does Jim get to pick all the players? Like, he never did that in San Francisco.
Does he want to?
Well, I don't know. But does he have a guy? Does he I want to work? Would Jim even have a guy?
No, you're right. I'm mad. I wonder. I don't know if we'll ever know if Jim.
Because even if Rich wins this game, if Jim Harbaugh wants your job, Rich is not. Now, I could see hey, keep him as your special teams coach, keep him as special team coach, and keep rolling. I could see that happen.
It could be very simple. Like, Bisaccia has a chance to keep the job depending on who else wants the job, right? Like Mark, I wouldn't be shocked if Mark Davis is willing to stick with him if he doesn't see anything else that he likes more. It would be interesting if Harbaugh got the job at his introductory press conference. Like, did John Madden try to get him to take the job the last time around? Right? We know Madden and the Harbaughs on a had texting relationships, and better than texting. I would imagine Jim spent some time in Pleasanton over the years between Stanford and the 49ers. Madden came out to see him. They talk. That would be another element to this. Another connection between the Raiders and Jim.
Do you think
in addition to
Jim,
the fact that he worked for them?
Can Jim leave accomplishing what he accomplished with his head high? I finally beat Ohio State, and we got to the playoffs.
Yeah.
I did it.
Yeah.
Because Michigan isn't Ohio State. I think we've come.
Well, they're not beating them next year. I saw somebody say it in the chat, and I agree. They're not beating them. Michigan's not beating them again next year.
Well, they're losing their best player in the draft, and Ohio State, they're losing some guys. Is 11? Is he going to the pros, or is he coming back?
Smith and Jigba?
Yeah.
No, he's back. He's a true sophomore.
Okay, so that's why he played.
Yeah, he'll skip next year's bowl game. Actually, he won't because they'll be in the playoff.
Yeah, with Marvin Harrison and 7 other
and
Terrell
Heisman Trophy winner C.J. Stroud.
Yeah, these brothers, like Georgia's Dalvin Cook's brothers, on it. Like, where are these guys? It's just Purdue.
Yeah, Dalvin's brother
coming from. Like, what? These guys are just. You're right. That's a great point. They're not beating Ohio State next year. They're just not going to be. There's no way he can live up to this season.
I also just wonder fundamentally, does he, and this is a more basic, big picture, does he feel like Michigan is as committed as Ohio State? Everything I've always heard is that, Michigan loves football, but they're not quite as an institution as committed to it as Ohio State is.
Do you think it's easier to be committed to basketball? Just less resources and less people? Like, it's probably just more financially of a burden for institutions to just push all their chips in on football. It's just more expensive.
I mean, it's why a smaller school like football.
But my point is, like, Michigan is a powerhouse in basketball and has been, it feels like, for the last 10, 20 years, right? Do you think it's just easier for them to just keep paying a lot because paying Juwan Howard, I don't have to pay Juwan Howard $10 million. I can pay him $4 million. Right. And he only has 4 assistants. Jim needs 17 assistants. Then he needs a GM with like 3 other guys.
And his own it's 7 strength and conditioning coaches, his own dietitian, team meals at every.
When in the last couple of years when you go out to Niner practice, how they have those wood things, like the wood. It's like an obstacle course.
Oh yeah.
Well, on John Lynch's football life, he met this trainer that they used to in San Diego run an obstacle course to train with like NFL players in the 90s. It looked just like that. The same exact look, this wood stuff. And John was a big believer in, like, it just made him a better football player. And obviously, like, it's probably pretty rare that a GM has this idea to do for the player, but it's like John Lynch has this idea, like, hey, this help me, I don't know, make Pro Bowls, all pros in the Hall of Fame. That's why they instituted it. Like, if you watch Football Life, you will see that thing. You're like, oh my God, I've seen that before. And it wasn't, let's just guess, all that material, I don't know, $50,000 was set up. Like, it just adds up. Football coaches have a lot of ideas, and every single one of them costs money. And it usually encapsulates minimum like 10 people because you have a group of 100 people on a team. It's just very, very expensive.
Yeah.
I do think it's much easier to be all in basketball and be consistently good. It's just cheaper.
Yep.
Like, can you imagine what some of Jim's demands are? Just cost money. It's why it's easy when Saban makes all these demands because every single one of them works. And Kirby got there right away. Every single one of them works. So they just keep cutting. Maybe in the SEC, why guys get fired because they always cut you the check. You just have to win. They have no problem cutting you the check.
They'll do whatever you want.
I think the most plays outside of the SEC, besides like Ohio State, like ask questions like, why are we doing this? Like, are you sure? Has this worked before? Like, I bet even Lincoln occasionally. This first year, he's probably can ask for whatever he wants. But
yeah, I think Oregon gave Mario what he needed. What he asked for.
What was he asking? Just for bigger staffs and more people?
Yeah, I'm sure. Bigger salaries, right? Let me bring in the Georgia strength and conditioning coach, that kind of thing.
That guy with the mustache, he went with him to Miami?
He did. Aaron Feld. Yeah, he did.
I saw a lot of guys left with him to Miami.
Yeah, the guy that coached the bowl game. He was the interim coach for Oregon.
Do you know what's funny? Whenever, I was watching that game, I had an edible. And you always you've got Twitter up when the thing's going on, and you can just search like some of Miami's like main accounts, like some of like their equivalent of Reddits, and they're like, "Look at our next wide receiver coach. I love this guy. This look. He's just the interim coach, but he's leaving to go to Miami. Yet all of Miami's like already CGIing him in like Miami shirts, like this guy. I love his swag on the sideline, But they don't even know anything about the guy besides he's coming to their school. That's my favorite.
I tweeted a video. I got tagged at a bunch of Miami football stuff this weekend, or last couple. Yeah, maybe Sunday, whatever day it was, because I don't know. In September, I had tweeted a video of Aaron Feld, the strength and conditioning coach, like running down the sideline. Players were celebrating, and he like went. The strength and conditioning coach is always the first guy down there to like after a touchdown, like get down, get back to the bench. And so somebody in Miami found that video, and it started getting passed around the Miami, blogs or whatever. And so I started seeing all these things, and one of the ones where they were photoshopping his mustache, green and green and orange on the mustache.
Yeah. Have you ever met that guy?
I have. Willie Taggart. Did Willie bring him? Actually, I feel like Willie might have brought him. I did a spring. No, maybe Mario brought him. I did a spring game at Oregon, Mario's first or second year, and Aaron Feld gave like a little tour. He gave us a little tour of the strength and
because Chip and Helfrich had kind of this smaller, little kind of crazy guy that was their strength and conditioning coach. That I think when Taggart got there, that guy went bye. But remember, didn't Taggart, his main guy?
Yeah, so maybe. Yeah, well,
maybe that guy took over.
Willie's first month, guys got sent to the hospital for overwork.
Yeah, a couple too many little gassers there on the field for. Yeah.
But it felt, he gives you the vibe of I have no problem waking up at 3:30 a.m. That's just when my body wakes up. That's the energy you get from him. Yeah.
That's a strength coach thing. Hey,
totally.
You better be here early. Whoa, can we sleep? No, just them to lift.
Podcast brought to you in part by Truebill.com/ham. Now, what is Truebill? Well, it's very easy. Truebill is an easy-to-use app that identifies your subscriptions to help you stop paying for things that you no longer need. For me, one thing, Truebill, I mentioned this on the last pod, I had an NBA TV streaming account that was a month-to-month that I hadn't canceled, and that bad boy was just renewing $35 a month, whatever it was. Then I'd forgotten that I have Audible, but I'm 7 credits behind on Audible. It's time for me to just download some books and cancel the Audible because I'm paying every month and I'm not catching up. Truebill reminded me of that. They caught that subscription, which is $15 a month. So Truebill.com/ham. It's a great app. Truebill.com/ham. Go right now to check it out.
They're saving you some money. And did you know, Guy, that on average, and I'm sure this, if you just did the math and added up what they're catching you, but on average, they save up to people $720 a year. But think of that's just an extra $100, $75 a month. And you don't even realize. I bet some people, I bet this number is skewed. Their older people maybe have less. Us younger people that just sign up for things nonstop and be I'll just do a 1 month free Showtime, 1 month free Audible. There are probably some millennials, some people 27, 28, who have an extra $2,000. They don't even realize. Cha-ching, cha-ching, cha-ching. Things they haven't looked at in 6 months. I bet that happens all the time.
I think the generation of people who we're in it now who didn't have to ever pull physical money out or ever write a check. Money is just a digital thing. It's a lot easier.
Remember when your parents, remember my dad would always have change in his pocket?
Oh, yeah, I think I got that here. And you'd shake it around your hand, be 10, 11, 17. Now I see the signs that say, please, exact change only. There's a coin shortage. No problem. That's not an issue for me.
When's the last time you, besides the money you get back, ever have coins in your pocket?
It's only liquor store Gatorade purchases when I end up with 6 cents in my pocket. And then I put them just back on the counter. I'm here's the penny. See a penny, take a penny, whatever. Start canceling today. They make it easy. In 3 easy steps, you can cancel subscriptions. Right now, those forgotten free trials have met their doomsday. Forget about those automatic renewals. That's how they keep you. But this is how you get rid of them. Don't fall for all those subscription scams. Start canceling today at Truebill.com/ham.
Yep, Truebill.com/ham. Go right now. Truebill.com/ham can save you thousands of dollars. I'm going to sign up tonight. I need you. Truebill.com/ham.
Forget about all those autopilot, auto renews. Truebill.com/ham. Okay. I think there has been a very under-discussed part of the Antonio Brown saga. A lot of people are freaking out about his shirt off or how people are reacting to him or whether or not Bruce Arians told the truth.
Some funny memes.
Fantastic memes. The one you sent me of him as a cheerleader was very funny. I wanted one with him photoshopped into this background of Ben's final game, like he was there to cheer on Ben. That would have been a moment. But for me, I think the under-discussed part of Antonio is that he's their second best receiver right now on a team that feels like heading into the playoffs, the Bucs, they're leaking oil a little bit. Chris Godwin is done. Antonio behind Mike Evans is their number one or their number 2 targeted receiver behind Mike Evans. He's number 2 on the team, number 1 behind Mike Evans now. The week before the Jets game, now I know they played Carolina, but his first game back, you know what he did? 10 for 101. Before he was out and this November, his previous 3 games in October were 9 catches for 93 yards, 7 for 124, and 7 for 63. I don't know if anybody's noticed, but guess what didn't happen Tuesday? For the second day in a row since Bruce said he's off the team, Antonio did not hit the waiver wire.
Do you believe it's truly that they're working with the league to get a resolution on what they can do? Or they're just like, hey, let's just take some deep breaths. Let's just get some updates on hamstrings and ACLs. And let's just Leonard Fournette still alive? Like, let's still kind of just, because you're right. Godwin.
And I would add to this, and they don't want him on another team.
You think anyone would take him after that?
I don't think so, but
I don't know. At this point in time in the season, I think you'd be hard. That'd be pretty nuts.
Jerry just lost a receiver.
Yeah, but they had number 1, Wilson was pretty good. The only team to me that was fucking with this guy was them, and it was because Tom was pounding the table. Like, was any other team taking him? But I am with you. Godwin was on a pace to. What was Chris Godwin going to make this offseason fully healthy with like 120 catches and 7 touchdowns? You know, was someone going to pay him $20 million a year? Probably. Mike is awesome. He has 12 touchdowns. He's always injured. He's like the 3 years ago Julio. Will you watch him? He'll like catch a touchdown, and then like by the third quarter, it's like he's like, I got to come out, and he'll come out, and it's hard for him to stay healthy. Gronkowski is having a pretty good season. Rob's had a pretty good little swan song here in Tampa those couple years. But you're right, like Antonio was good last. Remember, he caught a touchdown in the Super Bowl. That's a big loss. Now, I hadn't thought about it like, are they waiting? But you never know. I would never ever discount, like, emotions are high. It basically was confirmed, right? Bruce Arians told him to go in the locker room. He said leave. Maybe he didn't mean like leave, but maybe Antonio took it like that. Maybe it was just a miscommunication because he kept telling him
I would
to go
love for
into
him
the
to
game.
be back, and Bruce says this was all a miscommunication.
He hasn't left New York yet. He was at the Nets game last night.
Oh, okay.
What percent chance do you think we see him? He doesn't get cut. Like, you put it like 50-50 or we like?
No, I think he's got. I mean, I'd say it's. I think the chances are pretty good that he gets cut, but he hasn't been cut yet.
What do you think about people like, well, this changes the narrative? Was a coach trying to make him go in healthy? And then you see him doing jumping jacks like, Bruce Arians like, you're fine. What are you doing? He's like sprinting off the field. He's fine.
Could not care less about all those other discussions. Couldn't care less. He is not. Don't make Antonio Brown your poster child for whatever your cause is. That's my recommendation to anybody with a cause. Whether your cause is mental health, whether your cause is coaches force players to play hurt, whatever your cause is, I would caution you, making Antonio Brown the poster boy for it is not going to work out and will backfire on you. Period. That's just that would be my, if you're going to ride any of those horses, by all means, do not make him exhibit A. It'd be a mistake.
I was thinking about this. Listen, if you're the 49ers, you play Tom Brady, it's going to be hard. But their team is off right now.
Yes. They are less good without Antonio Brown. Just period.
They do get it would be in home. Bruce and Todd Bolt, like, their staff is elite. They still have some like culture stuff there that even with or without them, they're pretty good, right? Just the way their expectation is going to be win the Super Bowl. Right? That's what they're thinking. We're going to win the Super Bowl. Like, if we walked in that building tomorrow, Wednesday, first day back for this week, do you think there's anyone in there like, yeah, it's going to be hard to win the Super Bowl? Or like, we're winning the Super Bowl. Like, that's how they're talking. We're going to win the Super Bowl.
Well, I mean, Tom's won Super Bowls with less, right? I mean, you look back at the Super Bowl they beat the Rams. His leading receiver on that team was James White, who is not a receiver. Then it was Edelman. 74 catches for Edelman. James White had 87. Then it was Gronk. Josh Gordon was the second leading receiver on that team. Chris Hogan, Philip Dorsett, sneaky Cordero Patterson. Okay. Those were the so Tom doesn't need a bunch of Pro Bowl receivers to win a championship. And I think as cliche as it is, everybody says it is right. Like, look, don't write Tom Brady off based on the way he's playing at the end of a regular season. But to your point, like if from the Niners perspective, let's say if you're playing them in the first round, I'm not going to say they're easy to defend, but Antonio Brown didn't just become difficult on Sunday. Like there's a reason he was on the team because he was worth the trouble to them.
You know, one issue for them is one reason they were an unstoppable force last year is that front seven, the defense was awesome. Their whole defense. I mean, their secondary is playing well. Bunting was good. Winfield, the dude they drafted. Remember, you were the guy that kept talking about Jason Light's drafting. Like he couldn't miss.
Yeah.
Well, I think they've just had so many injuries. The Jets just ran for 150 yards, 26 carries, 150 yards. Zach Wilson threw for 230 on him. I mean, 230. Like so. You're having almost 400 yards of offense from the Jets on the Bucs. Now, is it as simple as you're playing a really bad team late in the year? I think we're going to find out this week. Like, is their defense just a major question mark going in, or was that just kind of a one-off, right, end of the year, taking a team a little lightly, and then all of a sudden they play it like their Super Bowl. You find yourself down, but you end up figuring it out. Like, I don't know. If Carolina is tight, because they just played them a couple weeks ago and they killed them. Destroyed them. I mean, they basically made all those stories come out about Matt Rule. It happened 2 weeks. They beat them 32-6, and then all the stories came out about Matt Rule. Like, is this 10-10 at half, or is this 17-0 at half? We're kicking the shit out of you.
Yeah, I mean, I have a hard time bad team games. Right, the Jets and the Panthers putting too much stock in it. I think it might be that those types of games could be a little misleading.
Part of it is they're struggling to score because they're out firepower.
It's a real thing. It's like
was that his most talented team last year he's ever had?
I mean the Randy Patriots undefeated.
But they didn't. But I'm saying that won a Super Bowl.
Oh,
he had Godwin, Evans, Antonio Brown were his 3 wide receivers. He had Rob Gronkowski. Leonard Fournette, just let's face it, like should he have been the 4th pick in the draft or whatever? No, but Leonard Fournette's a legitimate starting running back.
And Ronald Jones.
His offensive line was solid. Their defense was unreal. He had Arians, Todd Bowles. Like that was a pretty locked and loaded group, of just.
And who knows how we'll look back if Byron Leftwich is going to turn out to be a great NFL coach, right? We might look back and say Tom launched his, he had a very good OC as well.
And Bowles is going to be a head coach again, right? So he's going to be on a team with several head coaches. Ton of they had Ndamukong Suh, Devin White, Vita Vea, JPP. They were pretty stacked, man. I think defensive rookie of the year and the safety from Minnesota, Winfield. Those guys just been banged up. But if you're not healthy, like it's one big point of difference they had last year is they went in pretty healthy. And I've heard Bruce talk about it. He's like, we were healthy last year. What if the Niners were to lose and the Saints get in? Do you think the Bucs want to play the Saints in the first round?
No, their defense is fantastic right now.
And don't you feel like the Saints would just view that like we're beating them?
How could you beat them with Taysom Hill?
It'd be incredible.
I know. Somebody in the Patrick says 2003 maybe. I think the Patriots defense in 2003. I don't think their offense. I mean, Deion Branch was obviously a really good player. Kevin Falk, Troy Brown. In terms of running backs, that team was Antoine Smith. Now their defense, though, Rodney Harrison, Teddy Bruschi, Ty Law, Willie McGinnis, Tyrone Poole, Mike Vrabel, Richard Seymour, Ted Washington, Asante Samuel. I mean, that defense was pretty stacked.
Yeah, pretty good.
But not the offense. I don't think was intelligent.
Do you remember they had a stretch from 2003 to 2004 when they won the back-to-back?
Plus Brian Dable, Rob Ryan, Josh McDaniels, Charlie Weiss, Romeo Cornell. Sorry,
I love that Bill loved Rob. Like Rob was on his staff. They had a stretch, if I remember correctly, that when they won back-to-back, the second half of the first championship to the first half of the final. I think remember they had won like 19 or 22 or something straight games, and the Steelers I think beat them on like Sunday Night Football or something.
So they won. They started the first of those back-to-back Super Bowls 2-2, and then so what does that mean? They won 12 straight to finish the year. Then they won
the Super Bowl
3 games, so that's 15.
Yeah,
15 in a row, and then to start 2004, they won 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah. So
22
21 straight.
Oh, 15 plus 6, 20. Who beat them?
Pittsburgh. They were lost at Pittsburgh. Yeah. And then they won 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 more in a row.
They won a lot. I think if
they
been
were
around the Patriots,
17 and 2 back-to-back years. So
can you imagine some of the eyes and just feelings the 7 and 9 season? Like, what the fuck? Is this how people live in the NFL? How could you do this? The 7 and 9 1 year.
And then someone's like, I don't know. I'm just not. These practices aren't fun, guys.
Who said that?
Well, that was Cassius Marsh.
Oh yeah.
But then actually, apparently, I didn't watch. I've been watching Tom vs. Time. I saw a very critical article about not Tom vs. Time, the man in the mirror or man in the
arena.
Man in the arena. I read like a Boston media member wrote basically like, I guess last night's episode, Gronk kind of said the same thing. Like he wasn't having fun. Practice was a grind at the end. But I guess Tom like talks about the Eagles Super Bowl and like never mentions the fact that Eric Rowe barely played, Patrick Chung barely played, and that Malcolm Butler got benched. Yeah. And the guy doing the thing was like, you can't say like people don't deserve your opinions and then do two different self-promoted and self-produced documentaries and do a thing about the Eagles Super Bowl and not mention the fact that Malcolm Butler was benched.
So it's like he gets to remember it in his own way.
Yeah, like you can't talk about that game and then not address the fact that Malcolm Butler got benched if you're going to do like here are my thoughts on the game, But I don't know. On one hand, I agree with that. On the other hand, I respect not talking shit about your coach.
Well, this is a little inside, literally baseball. I texted you this yesterday. A lot of media members were very up in arms about Ken Rosenthal losing his job for MLB Network. And as someone who, lost a job, who was associated with a team, when you work for MLB Network or NFL Network or NBA TV, it is a fine balance. Like you're a journalist, I would imagine, but the difference
I'm not a journalist.
I meant those people like
okay.
David Aldridge or whatever.
Gotcha.
So it's like those guys that have journalist backgrounds that go work for the league, right? And Rosenthal was like double dipping. It was like, he got to do that. And when you work for MLB Network or NFL Network, you can probably get to do some sweet shit, right? They put you on some games. You're all over the place. But he also got back to his roots and did The Athletic. And I read some of the things that he wrote.
Fox.
And at Fox. But at The Athletic, he wrote columns like, Manfred, it's on him. Like he was just doing what you go to. And I'm pro talking shit. The Athletic is an area where a lot of shit is being talked. It's a critical place. It's like reading an old school newspaper. Well, you're blasting Manfred, but you're working for his thing. And I saw all these people like, I've worked for NBA TV, and when David Stern was mad at me, he'd call me. Well, that's one way, but you also get fired. You had 3 different jobs. Like, I actually on the side, I'm not pro Rob Manfred, but I do understand, like, bro, you don't get to just keep shitting on me and have all these other incomes. Like, that's not the way it works. And I think media is the one, it's probably one of the really rare industries where you can have like these really high-paying jobs and have several of them, and some of them kind of cross over into some interesting avenues.
Yes, it's almost. I've met Ken a few times and like been able to spend some time with Ken a few times, and he is every bit the guy that everybody says he is. Like he's super, like extremely cool, very generous with his time, and very cool. And I thought the same thing. Like. You got to sometimes when you work for state media, you got to pick one. Like, are you doing true journalism or are you willing to leave some things out? Now, I do also think like if Ken Rosenthal, who loves baseball as much as anybody, can't work for MLB Network, on one hand, that was my first thought. I was like, damn, if Ken can't work for MLB Network, who can? But then now I don't know if it's related to that or not, but you're in a tough spot if you're Rob Manfred because you're like, well, if I tell MLB Network you can't employ him, then he's kind of won, right? But if I do the right thing from a journalistic standpoint and just stand back and let him do his thing, I don't know. I can't let him walk all over my network. It's my network. So
in what line of work could you just publicly, someone who's cutting you a check, whether and money's all relative, whether it was $500 or $500,000 or $50 million, openly talk shit about a guy that's kind of controlling the pot or the boss and just consistently get away with it? Wouldn't you agree that most industries, it would not even be possible. Openly criticize the guy that's in charge.
I think even in sports, it's not possible, really.
Well, it's not. The guys lose their job all the time.
I remember saying this to one time a few years ago, talking to somebody who, a high-level NFL executive, and I said, I don't know what your plans are. My 2 cents is this: if you could ever have an NFL a team website, because teams are clearly trying to own more and more of their media material, right? You write articles, you post interviews, you do all that kind of stuff.
Scott Bair does the Atlanta Falcons.
Yeah, it's very smart. If you could ever find a way to walk the line of actually allowing some critical things on your website, then you could actually start to steal market share. If you don't ever do that, then you can't ever become the only voice. And the fact is, they'll never be able to do that. And that's okay. There's enough out there that you can have your team sites and your real journalism, and both things can exist. You won't ever be able to go all the way on a team site. It doesn't mean that you can't create good content and insight for your fans, but you won't ever be able to replace journalism, right, when there's a controversy, because you won't ever be able to tell the full story. And I understand that. The owner would never sign off on, yes, I am pro-journalism, so please, the .com website where the person who writes the website is 3 doors down from my office, probably not, a few floors down, but nonetheless, let them rip me all they want. And also, I'll see them in the cafeteria. Like, you're just not ever going to have that. And I understand why.
Yeah. I mean, I just thought the reaction.
But again, I don't know if is that why he's not back? See, that would be my thing. It's like,
the New York Post, I just saw it retweeted in my timeline, reported the reason he was fired for several articles last year over COVID responses and him blasting Manfred.
And good for him.
100%. But you just know, I never, when I led to the end of our radio show, which is the best thing that ever happened to us, led to the podcast, that I was, in a weird spot, but I was told I could say whatever I wanted. I understood why they would be mad on the other side. My whole take was why do we care? They don't draw ratings. Why do we give a shit? It wasn't that I didn't understand why they were mad. I think a lot of journalists are like, why would Manfred even give a fuck? Well, when you talk shit about someone, if I'm cutting the check or indirectly in charge of the pot of money, I'm sorry, I get to be mad at shit. That's the way, no different. Why do your parents get mad at 10-year-olds? Because they're fucking providing everything. It's no different than the workplace. But in most workplaces, we're all humans. We talk shit about our boss or whatever. We don't do it publicly, And I think sometimes
I also think 10-year-olds
in this world.
Yeah.
And I would imagine people have 7 different jobs.
I'm sure Ken knew the whole time. I would love to talk. I'm sure Ken understood the whole time. This might be that I respect it. He was not willing to say, I'm going to change the way I cover the sport because I work for MLB Network. If I say something too critical and they want to get rid of me, then fine. And I respect that about him. I really do. I think he's fantastic. And again, I saw him tweet, I'll be fine, and he will be fine.
Well, yeah, he got rich off the 3 different jobs for 10 years.
Yeah, and he's still part of Fox's biggest baseball coverage, and he will always.
For now, it's getting sold.
Yeah, but he that's a guy who will always, I think, be able to find a home.
Oh, for sure. I'm pro Ken Rosenthal.
I know. I know. Yeah, I am. You and I agree on this topic. We agree here. Can we talk about real quick we'll have more time to talk about it maybe. I mean, just the Colts, Raiders, Chargers playoff scenario?
Well, it's not even possible.
Because you don't think it's possible at all for the Jags to beat the Colts? Carson Wentz isn't going to have 3 interceptions. I know we talked about it a little bit.
And then the Raiders and Chargers tie?
Yeah, so my question is, if you're the Raiders and Chargers, the scenario where it comes into play is, would you go for 2 at the end of a game? Let's say you're down 1. You just scored a touchdown. You're down 1. There's a minute left. You win, you go to the playoffs. You lose, you don't go to the playoffs.
Well, you have to go to overtime, though.
Right. Then you found out.
You just wave at each other?
Oh, well, okay. Well, say it's overtime then. Say it's overtime. It's overtime. There's a minute left. You win, you go to the playoffs. You lose, you don't.
Well, you would know the result of the game going in, right?
Of the Jags.
So assuming it's the biggest upset of the season, they're what'd you say, 7-1 underdog. This is my highs and lows. This is one I can't even entertain. It's just so outrageous.
I'm with you. It's outrageous, but it is just all it takes is the Colts losing to the Jags,
which is a big
doesn't sound possible, but this isn't a 7-team parlay we're talking about here. I would just be fascinated because here's what I will say. If you're the Chargers or the Raiders, aren't you having a discussion this week about how do we play this game if we only have to tie to go to the playoffs?
I don't think that ever comes up in discussion.
It doesn't come up at all. How do we coach the end of this game if a tie gets us to the postseason?
You are completely playing for. How do you play for a tie when the game kicks off?
Well, no, it's not about playing for a tie when the game kicks off. It's about understanding all the scenarios. If you are in that situation, it's just about preparing for all the possibilities. If you're in a situation where
I wouldn't
you're
even.
tied
If I was the coach, I wouldn't even entertain the conversation.
Well, it would be malpractice to not understand the circumstances. Because imagine you're in a game late, a tie game, 4th and 1 from your own 30-yard line. I don't know. And you don't know that a tie gets you to the postseason. You haven't had one thought about whether or not tying is a good result for you. Like, it'd be malpractice.
Well,
if you got into the post-game press conference and they're like, scenario, a tie. I'm just saying, you spend 5 minutes talking about what do we do in this situation when a tie gets us to the playoffs?
I know this.
It's unlikely, but coaches prepare for unlikelier things.
Doug Peterson and Sudfeld and Hurts and the Wentz thing, they got shit on, and I thought unfairly. Like, why do they give a fuck about it? If the upset happened, and somehow it's like 2020 in the fourth quarter, can you imagine the outrage of just competitive questioning the gamble? I mean, it would be. But again, like, you're right. Maybe it discussed. I can't even wrap my head around. Because think about the scenario.
Your analytics, maybe your analytics guys prepare for it more than you do.
But how do you
as a
play
coach.
for a tie, like even in the second? Because
it's not about playing for a tie in the second quarter. It's just about knowing at the end of the game all the percentages.
But to get to the end of the game, then you have to me, the end of the game, then you have to go to overtime. Like, would you just not try to win in overtime?
No. It's just about, to me, it's as simple as just understanding there might be a moment where you're deciding between trying to win or sticking with a tie, kicking an extra point or going for 2. Now, you're right. The other side of that is somebody told me there was a World Cup game in the 90s where, like, if a team won 1-0, both the team that won and the losing team would advance. But if they won by more than that, then the losing team would not advance or the winning team would not advance. And one of the teams took a 1-0 lead early. And now both teams knew if the score stayed the same, they would both advance. And they both just passed the ball around for the remaining.
Much easier to do that minutes. In soccer than football.
Yes. Well, that clearly both those teams are on the same page. Yeah. Bisaccia and Staley aren't calling each other on their secret bat phones this week.
We would obsessively rip the whole performance if they attempted to tie and it was clear. They would get destroyed.
But again, John, I'm not saying, and no one's playing 2 quarters of football trying to tie. It's just as simple as at the end of the game, is there a scenario where, let's say, punting instead of going for it from your own territory, where if you don't get it, suddenly you could lose the game? That's all I'm talking about, is that not both teams participating, just a team making a percentage call based on what the score is.
Yeah, if you had 2 minutes left in overtime, would you punt instead of going for it?
That's what I'm talking about.
But think how far you got to get into the game. Like,
no question.
In the overtime section, like that,
no doubt.
Would have had to be kind of crazy just to get. That would be the craziest game we've ever seen if they've even got to that point, right?
And they did things. See, if it was like,
to me, Rich, he's fighting for his job. He's trying to win. Brandon Staley, who knows? I mean, he'd get a ESPN. NFL Live would love it if he tried for tie. Who knows? I think Rich would try to win. He's reading an article today about it. I think so too.
But again, what I'm talking about is as simple as it's 30 seconds left. You can go for 2 in the win or one to tie, and you go to the postseason. What do? You go for the win?
Wait, say that scenario one more time.
You just scored a touchdown to get yourself within 1. 2-pointer for the win, 1 for the tie, and you go to the playoffs either way. Which one do you do?
At the end of regulation?
Yeah, or say the end of it makes more sense because you rightly shot that down at the end of regulation. Let's say it's at the end of overtime.
I mean, I don't know. I guess
you kick the extra point, you go to the playoffs. That's what you do.
That'd be so.
I know it offends your sensibilities. A, to have a hypothetical conversation of this regard, and B, to play for the tie. But my ultimate point is, I also
think it's just way harder to get. Like, there's so many things to even get there. I get what you're saying. Like, what if you're there? It's we all have to admit it. It's very rare that like we even come close to ties. We've seen a couple close in the last several years. Even this year, like watching the Steelers game last night, I'm like, God, they're a tie away. Like they would have been in this conversation, right? Because they would have been 9-7 with these teams with that tie. And I remember watching that game because it flipped on one of the channels because it was like rain in Pittsburgh. It was the ugliest game you've ever seen. Both teams were trying desperately to win the fucking game. No one could catch the ball. And that crossed my mind last night. Like, I wonder, the Steelers got to be kicking themselves. They are a tie away from being right there in the mix.
Jason breaks up a great point. This is part of the problem with this argument is that it's actually an impossible. The scenario I gave you is impossible because a touchdown.
Well, I know, but we were talking regular season or regular,
So I guess it would. So
regulation.
The question is at the end of regulation, and that's where you say no. You go for the you go.
Like you wouldn't do what John Harbaugh does. You go for the win.
You go for the win. You don't go for the tie at the end of regulation, knowing that gets you to overtime. Yeah. That's a good point. Good.
You're not remembered for the rules you follow. You remember for the rules you break. So you go for it. You become a legend. Knock them out.
But I mean, the other part of it is you just go into overtime, then you could lose the game, and that's no good. So this is where a live show's good as people can say, wait a second, you're forgetting about that. I guess it could happen with field goals. Anyway.
Yeah. But so you just wouldn't kick a field goal because maybe they would not kick
No, I don't think you can. I think the question is if the other team has kicked a field goal and you are, let's say, 4th and goal in overtime, the other team has already kicked the field goal. They're up by 3. Now, do you score? You kick the field goal, 4th and goal, right, to tie the game and go to.
Here's what I would say. I would, if I was operating as the head coach or the GM, we are not having this conversation at all week because the number one mindset has to be to win the game. We assume the Colts win. If somehow the Jaguars shock the world, win that game, then we have the conversation internally how we would play it out. But I am never uttering those words to any player all week.
Oh, no, of course not.
That's the kind of vibe. That's where I thought you were like,
God, no. I'm not talking about talking to the players. I'm just talking about with my analytics staff, like, is there a scenario where playing for the tie would be, that's what, just guys, like, have the numbers because we might come into this situation.
Well, I could see the Chargers doing it. I could not see the Raiders doing it.
You think Mark Davis came down like, fellas, this organization does one thing.
Well, I mean, how could you walk? I mean, the saying of the organization is just win, baby. Then you just played a tie, baby.
Yeah, you went to the playoffs. That's how you get away with it.
In the most gutless fashion ever.
Gutless? You went to the playoffs. They don't care gutless. There's no gutless. You made it to the playoffs.
Yeah, I haven't even entertained that.
Gutless. No, gutless. All right. Yellowstone, you had to take. I don't know how to set you up.
Yeah, let's just talk. I mean, we've been going a couple hours. Let's just save
Tito's. Save that for the next one.
Yeah, I'll save it for the next one too.
All right. Okay. That your Yellowstone take won't expire.
Yeah, no, it's not going anywhere.
All right. On that note, thanks for hanging with us, everybody. If you're on the YouTube, hit the like button, 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 hit the like button on your way out the door. That helps out the show, and we appreciate it. If you're watching or listening, go to iTunes, leave us a review. Apple Podcasts, 5 stars. Give us a question. That's how you get in the Haberman and MIDDLEKAUFF mailbag. And tell us your favorite bar as well and all that.
Peace.
Later.